Part 339. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3395. He stopped, then flew out of the giant tree, feeling dizzy about the world, and then went to play with some small creatures in the surrounding area. On this day, he was actually in a remote place. His eyes were fixed and he could no longer look away. It turned out that at the point of a giant tree, a drop of amber was forming. This amber is not very big, at most more than 100 kilometers in size. To the other world, it is just amber produced by ordinary trees. But for experts, this is definitely more than just amber. Things of enlightenment. He was startled for a moment, and then looked at this object of enlightenment. It was not a pure object of enlightenment, but something close to that of enlightenment. He has already made many similar things in the other world. The level of this thing is similar, but at this moment, when it appears in front of Jia Yan's eyes, it seems to have an effect that exceeds the real perception. It actually opened up my horizons and wisdom. Although it is only temporarily opened, it is enough. Only then did Jia Yan realize that the most useful thing is to personally pick things that reflect reality. Now he was faced with the huge role of this thing. If it is obtained by others, it must be missing the benefit of the first moment. Of course, even if Jia Yan knew this, it would be difficult for him to pick every item in person, because it is unrealistic and impossible to do so. And not every piece of enlightenment is beneficial to the picker. That is to say, he now encounters this unexpected object of enlightenment in the wild. It belongs to the right time, place, and right people, and it is almost like a gift. Yin yin yin. The dizziness in his head quickly ended, and the light in his compound eyes gradually increased again as he lost his energy. He slowly regained his original sanity, and the countless negative thoughts of not wanting to study in his mind were also driven out. Wow, radiant. Poof. The amber disappears into the branches. With this piece of amber stuck in his stylet organ, he ran towards the other end of the woods as fast as he could. He wanted to retreat again as soon as possible while the feeling was still there. Rules. So-called rules. There is an age limit. What does this rule have to do with it? The compound eyes are filled with mist. My mind was deep in thought, with countless thoughts flying around. Maybe it has something to do with life and death. Jia Yan quickly identified a direction. If there is anything that young people are weaker than, it is nothing more than life and death. He has experienced a lot of ups and downs, and a lot of life and death, but in real terms, life and death that he can see clearly as he grows older are not at the same level at all. Apart from this, Jia Yan boasts that he is not much different from others in terms of ability and strength. Continue to practice in an orderly manner. With the blessing of the unique amber, he gradually clarified his thoughts. The feeling of refreshment kept him thinking. However, the good times did not last long, and he soon faced a state of mental exhaustion. Look again. This mountain forest is the largest forest area on the small island. Because there are few creatures and they are all at the primitive level, there is not much damage to the forest. Jia Yan did not choose this place casually. People in this world don't have high demand for things that can be understood, or to put it bluntly, they don't have any demand. So the people who come here to look for things of enlightenment are outsiders. Jia Yan doesn't even know whether visitors from other universes besides the Milky Way are also interested in things of enlightenment. With fewer contenders, the probability is naturally higher. I want to look higher and farther. He released his mind and hung in the air, looking at the earth below. Flying to a height of more than 30,000 meters, you can have a panoramic view of the endless forest scenery. Soon, he gained something again. Since his strength reached today's level and the ability to monitor formations, his efficiency in finding objects of enlightenment in such places has been greatly improved. This is another thing that is weaker than the object of enlightenment. It seems that there are not many genuine objects of enlightenment in this world. But no matter how it is not a thing of enlightenment, if the number is added up, it can also exceed the genuine one. What's more, unlike some major superstars, the enlightenment will immediately cause a bloody storm. The next piece of enlightenment turned out to be the remains of a living thing. A small turtle shell. It can be vaguely discerned that the original owner of the turtle must have been dead for a long time. But the turtle shell still exists, and it blossoms into a spiritual being, becoming an object of enlightenment. It looks like I can use it a few more times and take it back with me. The turtle shell was lifted entirely by Jia Yan. A mosquito that is 60 kilometers in size is holding a turtle shell that is thousands of kilometers in size. It looks quite funny. Boom. The giant mountain-like turtle shell was thrown under the giant tree. Jia Yan strengthened the surrounding defensive formations, then lay on the turtle shell, and continued to comprehend in the sunshine and the fragrance of birds and flowers. The power of perception this time actually contains magical energy. Life or death? Jia Yan was startled, and then his eyebrows lit up with joy. Isn't it? Turtles are very representative of long lifespans, but unfortunately, the owner of this shed has died, so isn't it normal for it to carry the aura of life and death? If it were other masters who had never thought about needing the aura of life and death, they would probably realize something else from above. This is the magic of the thing of perception. In short, Jia Yan instantly got the inspiration he hoped for. Life and death, to put it bluntly, are the imprints of activity between living things. It is possible to move when alive, but impossible to move when dead, and even the physical body disappears. Jia Yan understood something basic. After all, it is nothing more than whether it can move and whether it can always maintain the point of life. But this is just some stereotype of life and death. For people on Earth, it can be explained simply and clearly. But as a top master, if his understanding is so shallow, it is simply a dream to understand the rules of life and death. And what is the deeper level of life and death? Why do living beings need to live? And why do you want to live a long life? Jia Yan relaxed his mind and kept thinking. He seemed to see himself transforming into a turtle thousands of kilometers in size. This size was far from huge in the mountains and forests, however, because he had the means to save his life and the turtle shell was extremely hard. He had few natural enemies and could survive to a long time. But he kept crawling in the mountains and forests, and eventually he became tired and lonely. He began to be confused as to why he had lived for so long. The turtle doesn't remember how long he has lived, but he has been living here since the forest was not as colorful as it is now. He has never been able to find a companion, and loneliness has been with him since birth. Finally, when he came to a pond, he didn't want to leave and lay down. This lie is forever. Life and death, it feels so lonely. He should have lived for a long, long time, probably tens of thousands of years old. Although his strength is not very high, his intelligence is not low, but he has wasted his whole life in this mountain forest, and then he cannot bear it. Living in eternal loneliness is equivalent to giving up one's own life. Such a life and such a death are difficult to accept. But the turtle who has lived for tens of thousands of years seeks death, which means that he has a much longer lifespan than the lower level domain lords, but he still lives unhappy. If it were me, I wouldn't live like this. Will be happy. So what kind of life are they pursuing, and what kind of life are they pursuing? Death. Information. After a long pause, Jia Yan finally lit up his heart like a bright light. If we say that the true meaning of life is probably not survival, but information. If you can't influence other living beings, then the meaning of your life will be gone. Jia Yan thought firmly. The matter is simple and easy to understand. Every minute and every second of every living being's existence actually affects other living beings. No matter how otaku he is, he will have an impact on the small animals or bacteria around him. These are all classified as information levels. If you can't even create information for other living beings, then your life is meaningless. In the end, like this old turtle, he can only seek death alone. Information. For a time, countless plans suddenly appeared in my mind. It was also accompanied by a large number of memory fragments. Jia Yan knew he had found the right path. Otherwise there shouldn't have been such a big reaction. Of course, even if he finds the wrong path, his enlightenment at this time will bring him endless benefits. Seeing through the essence between life and death, and understanding many truths, is a huge growth for any strong person. In view of the general environment, everyone has their own opinions and rules. Maybe life and death are like this in my eyes, but other people also have other opinions. This kind of thing has nothing to do with right or wrong, but whether I believe it or not, because when it comes to this step basically belongs to the category of philosophy, and there is no right or wrong. The issue of life and death does not belong to scientific principles with perfect and correct answers. It's more like philosophy, everyone has his own life creed. Jia Yan believes in this, so he only needs to stick to his belief. Then what? Find the rules based on your own beliefs. Looking at it this way, the rules must not be the same for everyone. Jia Yan realized it again. Everyone sees the world differently. So rules are probably different in everyone's eyes. Generally speaking, the rules in general are similar. For example, in the so-called life and death, no matter how different everyone is, they still know that life is survival and death is death. Perhaps in the subtle aspects, hundreds of schools of thought have the same understanding, but they can achieve the same goal through different paths. Jia Yan suddenly had many more complicated thoughts. In addition to life and death, can the same problem-solving method be used to understand energy? But now is not the time to think so much. One bite won't make you fat. What he needs is an understanding of the rules of life and death. With such perseverance, he once again began a long retreat. This time was not too long, but it lasted for 5 years. After 5 years, the turtle shell loses all spirituality, and the unique power of the perceived object disappears. Come again. He opened his eyes suddenly and rushed towards the mountain forest in the air. With his piercing eyes, he discovered many things that he had once ignored. Is this a rule? Life and death? It seems that I have seen these things in the past, but I have ignored them. Jia Yan took a breath. There are strange smells everywhere in the sky. The breath of life, the breath of death. Life and death are happening all the time in the mountains and forests. It was not that these things could not be observed in the past, but for living beings, it was as if they were accustomed to eating and drinking water, so they forgot to observe them and ignored them. But after opening the rules door, he has been able to see many rules clearly. No wonder, when those holders saw me 1 or 2, they thought that I couldn't be involved, because I don't have the aura of rules at all. But even now, my rules are still too simple. Many masters who are not holders are better than me. Jia Yan nodded, not belittling himself or having too much confidence in himself. He's still taking things step by step. For many things, once you have a clue, you just need to work hard and keep going. He has even passed the most difficult stage of yin shi. Is he still afraid of the road ahead? These hardships can only be sustained through hard work. I will persist until the so-called competition begins. He has fallen far behind others. If he doesn't put in all his efforts, he will definitely fall into the first batch of eliminations. Over there, there is death. Jia Yan stared at a place that exuded dead rules. Rushed over violently. He wanted to try to see if his eyes of rules were wrong. Sure enough, when they arrived at the edge of the field, a tiny creature on the ground that was 300 kilometers in size was killed by another predator that was 1,000 kilometers in size. Get out of here! Jia Yan roared loudly, and the predator whimpered, shrunk its neck, and ran towards the depths of the jungle as frightened as if it were flying. The body of this thing was obtained by Jia Yan. It is indeed the regular aura of death. Jia Yan came to the front of the dead body and silently watched the changes in the body. The regular energy on the surface of the recently deceased corpse was very clear and had a hint of life. Jia Yan tried to interfere with the life on the corpse. I want to inject some kind of life in the air into the other person to extend his life. But as soon as I took action, I felt endless pressure on me. He stopped quickly. Somewhere, I feel that if I take action, there will be huge danger waiting for me. Interesting. Many things in the universe evolve according to rules, and Jia Yan has long known that. But this kind of rules are not gods or conspiracy theories, but the rules and limitations of the universe itself. Just like gravity, friction, and inertia, these are just the basic rules of the universe and are not man-made. It's just that Jia Yan and others have reached the highest level, and it seems like they are fighting against the rules. In fact, it is just that they have bumped into the basic rules of the universe. Just as scientists are constantly defying the laws of the universe, many experiments seem like magic. Those who have mastered the power of rules also seem to cast magic. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3396. If I endured the backlash of the rules and took action just now, would I have been able to save this creature? The animal in front of me, which looked like a sika deer, finally kicked its legs and died. Jia Yan didn't save it because there was no need. Jia Yan couldn't exchange his own serious injury or even death for the other person's life. Moreover, the other party's neck was bitten off. He thought that even if he could save him, it would be extremely troublesome. So, if I try my best, can I keep myself alive? Jia Yan thought of this. But he quickly shook his head. If this matter were that simple, wouldn't it mean that all the masters who were stronger than him would have unlimited lifespans? But to this day, no one has ever heard of anyone having it. It is foreseeable that I have been deeply involved in the rules of life and death. It will not take long. At least the qualifications for holding the admission ticket will be a certainty. He even understands the rules of life and death, so it is possible for him to step into this small door. Some kind of powerful force tore at Jia Yan's body, causing my expression to change wildly. When I tried to struggle to resist, the world behind my eyes seemed to be affected by that devouring force, and the whole thing was squirming like running water. Stand up. I suddenly took out the fan I had hidden beside me. You finally understand why when these guys see you, they think you may be a possessor. Even the small door is opened. Why are you competing with us? Competing for the top spot. Each one of them was elected from various major galaxies and worked hard under the extremely cruel rules. Even a very weak person like me, who is in the first level of Territory Lord, can't resist its sound, which directly disturbs my state of mind. Jia Yan also knows whether he can become an official ticket holder. Until one day, when I lost sight of the white-gray light spots of death, I suddenly felt a green light spot appear in my field of vision. By the time Jia Yan came back to his senses, the world had completely changed. The earth-shattering roar overwhelmed the original sound of the world, giving me a huge shock and emotion. We are fully interpreting and studying our life and death from our own perspectives. Because nothing is real yet, everything seems to be real. Only then do we know what we do and the reasons for our actions. The bad image understands the origin of the world, but the bad image can understand everything. The brilliance on the surface of the fan seemed to have found a target and was swallowed directly. Is that still worth my displeasure? The sound seemed to come from it, or even from the island. When I opened the small door of the rules of life and death, I mastered a huge amount of knowledge like an enlightenment. In the 8th year when he was back in the research stage, Xiao Yan had just started a long retreat and was preparing to rest for a long time before continuing. A long and mysterious horn sound came from the sky, which scared me. Jump. That's not the smallest manifestation of the generation difference. Xiao Yan is also in seclusion, and I have been in contact with the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce in the dynasty through the communication network that has not yet been established. After opening the small door of life and death and the small door of information, he discovered that the world in front of the door was far broader than what he later understood. But we couldn't find any reason or excuse to attack the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. I looked at the wider world and felt my scalp numb. The Northern Legion, the foreign races, and even the underground tribes who have no friendly relations with the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce will not be able to take smaller actions against the dynasty before they lose the help of the islands in the sea. Those little capable beings now seem to control life and death. I also thought of the Taixia Xiaonang who led me to retreat to the ladder of heaven and step on the path of ascending to the front steps of the territory lord. There is a world of imagination. Although Jia Yan was not one of them, it was not so smooth for him to get the ticket. Not long after I released it, I felt dizzy for a while, and I restrained my formation in a staggering manner. Oh! There have been minor fluctuations in the Northern Army. Are there no changes in the internal personnel? Now looking back. You are here. Instead, it seemed to resound from the distant sky and reach directly into the depths of people's hearts. Holders are a very unique group of people. Life and death are the basic rules for becoming a front-level domain lord. After thinking about it, he shook his head. I even have enough knowledge about Xiao Yan, but if I can still figure out the power of rules required for admission tickets, I might have fallen behind the competition before. The so-called hard work is not something that everyone can bear. Thinking about it, there are too few bad aberrations when considering time. Jia Yan smiled. Huaxiang is personally responsible, so I won't be able to understand or even control the current affairs of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. I just hate that there is not enough time. A formation bloomed. Bad images, those things will always exist in the future, but you will always be able to understand, they are. Well, being too bad probably takes a toll on your mental energy. But it also brings a lot of disadvantages, such as a weakening of the mood, a deep understanding of oneself, and a lack of tolerance. Mastering the rules of life and death only makes me weaker. There is no possibility of minor turmoil in the dynasty. I listened. Hey, what are those? Even Xiao Yan would have done this, right? You can ask for less, right? Have you understood the rules of life? Not only green, but also white, red, yellow. Is this the clarion call for the end of competition? Jia Yan is by no means the kind of person who can endure endless happiness. In this way, the formation becomes even more terrifying when it is outside Jia Yan's hand. To be honest, I don't think that person can bring too little threat to me, and it is even difficult to threaten the old Hai Tian. Opening the fan again, he observed the so-called teaching atmosphere on it. My face changed slightly, and I quickly imagined the rules of life and death in my mind, and then used the power of brain waves to release them. My eyes twinkled. Jia Yan felt his mind moving for a moment. Jia Yan's original self-healing ability as a degenerate beast is not considered useless at this stage. Your self-healing ability has also become weaker, and you were not a relatively weak degenerate beast at that point. Now that you have added advantages, it is only as complicated as 1 + 1 = 7. Of course, that refers to special life forms. Jia Yan suddenly thought of his old friend and smiled slightly. You may have told me with bad intentions. You just hope I can get the information from somewhere. It turns out that those who have retreated through that small door have even retreated to the threshold of the possessor, and they may not have the chance to retreat into a lower level life. The rules of life and death, based on my self-understanding, gradually retreated into a better state. Yesterday, I was able to save lives and heal the wounded. Boom. But within a short period of time, about 1/7 of his mental power was absorbed. Since the newly emerged trump card is unsustainable, it is best to hide it and use it as a last resort. The colorful colors are like lighting up the colored lights outside my rule world, and they are very bright and moving. Life cannot be turned into a formation of healing power. Yes, it is weak, but the masters who have reached that point have no similar self-treatment method. Since I mastered the rules of life and death, I no longer dare to pay attention to these participants. But the green light lasted for a long time and turned into white again. What about that? I'm afraid that this old man Haitian may have ridiculed me a few times in private when he looked at my narcissistic self every day, right? Xiao Yan let out a long sigh of relief. It's true. But no matter how hard you struggle, it can still conceal the passage of time. Buzz. The lines of life and death that I can see are getting fewer and fewer. The few living things that have died outside the forest are like light spots outside my eyes, and they are clearly visible. It is impossible to be weak and unable to control so few clones at the same time. After all, a very small number of the products monopolized by the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce are related to science and technology and people's livelihood. Less than 40% is the product value created by the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce over the past 100 years. Is there any reason for him to restrict it? Does he dare to use it? What do you think? No matter how hard you try lately, you can't slow down. It turns out you're stuck under the rules of life and death. I smiled bitterly. The only way you can sustain fighting using that formation is for 7 minutes. It seems that the killer weapon is weak, but it is also a conventional method. Only under the superposition of such various conditions can we obtain the ultimate benefit, and only 1 in 100 will get the opportunity to be promoted. The light seems to be looking for something. I also understand very few things that I could understand in the past. It's very bad. We have finally reached the current stage. Violently, I seem to understand something. The mosquito face changed wildly. There is nothing in the distance, but I know that there is no imaginable weird existence here, releasing that long sound. What sound? My compound eyes flickered slightly. By the way, does the so-called alien emperor of the Magellan Alliance also have the power of rules? I am outside the galaxy of unorthodox ticket holders. I am afraid that there are no such things. I hope I have other rules in my hands. Tickets, otherwise we will cry to death. At least the lack of such few means is equivalent to weakening Jia Yan's combat effectiveness by a small amount out of thin air. Each of us has mastered the rules of life and death. At least at that point, our methods are several times weaker than those of the newcomer Jia Yan. Probably call it joy in suffering. Haha, as you expected, the rules of life and death have actually affected your formation power. The competition is not over yet. Buzz. Otherwise, if the enemy finds out, there will definitely be many means of resistance. The Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has not yet become a military organization with combat power comparable to that of the Imperial Dynasty, or even surpassing it. In terms of the assistance we receive from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, let alone swallowing up the Imperial Dynasty, even supplies for people's livelihood will be sanctioned, and we will be trapped in people's livelihood. The passive situation of concealment may naturally lead to trouble. Faintly crossing the endless distance. Life. The survivability was directly reduced by less than double. In the past, the shortcomings were not too obvious due to my long-term slow breakthrough. Xiaonang. I laugh at myself for my past practice of sitting in a well and looking at the sky. As long as someone with open eyes knocks down the door, you can't rest assured. False. Or should we say, the real world. It seems I still don't have another ticket in my hand. It seems you are alone. Now, almost all the forces in the dynasty have a vague understanding of the problems they will face if a business group monopolizes almost half of the finance and commodities. Paint white, only not painted white. However, whether it is knowledge, survivability, or the diversity of non-combat methods, they are all the same overnight. Therefore, That unprecedented long-term practice caused many troubles for my state of mind. Just an analogy. Jia Yan struck while the iron was cold and threw the tortoise shells and other enlightenment objects that had not lost their effectiveness into the hidden depths of the grass. He jumped back into the tree hole and retreated to the stage of studying the rules of life and death. With bright eyes, I flew out of the tree hole and looked up. Maybe when I reach that level, there is no limit to how much I can improve my combat effectiveness. Switching to the low-hand level requires long-term research and systematic learning. The reason is very good, because I have mastered the rules of life, and in conjunction with the rules of death, even if I understand some medical knowledge, I can easily save lives and heal the wounded. After decades of seclusion, it was time to face a test. Not only do they need to be strong, but they also need to have good minds and luck. It can be said that Jiao Yan has not yet reached the level of those few, but is close to it. So once it is known that there are no rules of life and death under my formation, Jia Yan will definitely use some method that Jia Yan understands to crack my life and death formation. Jia Yan put away the communicator and continued to understand the rules. I'm very relieved. That is the shock that can only be caused by people who understand the twin rules of life and death. After one night, I changed my appearance enough to become a doctor, using it to diagnose and treat difficult and complicated diseases. Death, the killing power, will be extremely terrifying. It's like missing a trump card. Before the next glimpse, I could roughly conclude that the master of the galaxy at close range was obviously the one who moved it. The foreign emperor of the Magellanic Galaxy Alliance has stopped taking action again. Maybe the truth is slightly different from what I thought, but overall, I think I am getting closer to the truth. I remembered that in the central star field of the Milky Way, there was a Xiaoneng who sat in the endless space, differentiated an infinite number of threads, and controlled all life forms in the central star field. Not yet. Wu. Qiao Yan pretended to be compassionate, thinking about that person again. I saw that the admission ticket was indeed emitting dazzling lights. After a while, several light spots appeared at the end of his sight, and those light spots were approaching rapidly. You know, I have always prided myself on being an existence that is relatively weak in terms of mental power. When Jia Yan heard a piece of love, his expression showed a smile. But before the rules of life and death disappear, other than these beings who also control the rules of life and death, I can't help but dominate them and cannot look down on the very small number of people at the same level. A very special formation circle, but under Jia Yan's careless gaze, the circle that was originally emitting blue light gradually began to emit green light after continuing for a moment. It's like a marionette. I also thought of Xiaoneng, who sealed off the entire White Cave area and blocked countless people who wanted to be promoted. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3397. Each light spot seemed to contain some kind of life form inside, but no matter how hard Jia Yan tried, he couldn't clearly see the form of the life form inside. He couldn't even clearly see the opponent's power level and other attributes. He realized that he probably had the same image in the other person's eyes. They come, the security. He calmed down. This should be a scene that competitors must experience. However, who could be responsible for this scene? Someone mighty? Or is it the legendary existence that created the other world? Jia Yan couldn't understand it either. But at least he calmed down his somewhat confused emotions and began to wait quietly for the start. Large spots of light are like mushrooms springing up after a rain, gathering together in groups. Jia Yan was already one of them, but after seeing so many light spots, his scalp was still numb. There were about hundreds of people. Are these all so-called holders? It's a bit too much. From his memory, there are only so many islands near the mainland area. Could it be that there is a competitor in both the mainland and the islands? This density is too high. But there was no answer to his thoughts. Boom. When the number of people reached the peak and no longer increased or decreased, the figures in the light spots suddenly discovered that several indescribable and shocking existences appeared beside them. These figures are so majestic and tall that it is difficult to describe their appearance, but based on the point of light, their stature exceeds 1,000,000 kilometers. That is to say, each one is bigger than the Earth, even larger than Jupiter and other planets, and close to the Sun. But this is a point of light and cannot be compared. Maybe their actual bodies are not that huge. These are. Jia Yan was thoughtful. My friends, you represent the holders of the major galaxies. You must all know the rules. Since you have the rules of life and death, you are qualified to compete. Suddenly, in the huge light and shadow, someone spoke. His voice was so powerful that it seemed to shake the earth. The shock makes people's brains hurt. But it also played a very effective role in attracting attention and listening to his speech. You should be able to guess our identities. Yes, it is the promoted person who once won this competition. He is also the so-called powerful person, super powerful person, and even the domain lord in your major galaxies. Above the domain lord? Jia Yan said as expected. He carefully observed the person speaking. It feels familiar. The title Territory Lord should not exist in other galaxies, so it is not difficult to guess the identity of this person. It may be the power above the domain lord from the Milky Way. No wonder there is a sense of familiarity, a connection between his energy and the energy of the universe. It's just that this power is more unpredictable and infinitely larger than any energy Jia Yan has ever seen. They are all existences of the supreme level, and 5 of them came as soon as they arrived. Jia Yan looked at these light groups and felt a little shaken in his heart. These level masters who only belong to legends suddenly appeared in front of them. For the lower level domain lords like them, it was no less than a legend coming true. But what touched them even more was, as long as they go through this so-called competition process, some people in this group of lights and shadows will have the same level as these powerful people and live as legends. This temptation is the most irresistible. Now I declare that you will wait until this competition begins. Here are the rules of competition. Without rules, there is no circle. Although your competition is based on truth, there are also many rules that need to be followed. Watch out and don't let us personally punish those who violate the rules. Rays of light emitting dim brilliance flew into the minds of every participant. Jia Yan was hit by this light before he even had time to react. He was horrified. Sure enough, in the hands of a truly powerful person, a character like himself cannot even dodge a single blow. But he was also hotter inside. I swear that I will survive this competition and become a being on the same level as these powerful people. He gritted his teeth in his heart. The legend is right in front of him. He has been fighting for his whole life, how could he give up so easily? All the masters in the surrounding area probably have the same internal needs as Jia Yan. Each one of them belongs to the top domain masters in their respective galaxy, and they are full of inner arrogance and self-confidence. I don't know if this great master is the Supreme Senior, but I have been in contact with the Supreme Senior. His attitude should not be like this. I am afraid he is another hidden powerful master in the galaxy. I don't know which one of the light spots is Hai Tian. Is he not even qualified? It shouldn't be possible. That guy is so well hidden that he can't even understand the rules of life and death. Jia Yan looked around carefully while sensing the rules and instructions in the light. The rules seem to be simple, but they are very simple. In summary, you can't invite top experts from outside to help you, and you can't use various objects that exceed the upper limit of your own abilities. Details are fixed to every point, allowing people to see the ups and downs that have happened. For example, what cannot be used to refer to the subspace peak and the entire Earth, what cannot be borrowed from the power of black holes, etc. It can be seen how crazy the previous participants were and how unconventional their behavior was. What terrible rules, just like the criminal law of the human world. What is written on them are all the criminal methods that have been used by people in the past, and they are all quite shocking. Jia Yan said he learned. It seems that someone has already done something about peaking the entire subspace, so he can research in this area in the future, and maybe it will have miraculous results. Another example is the black hole method. I remember that the Black God clone has studied black holes. Maybe if this clone can operate it, the best clone can be cultivated. Of course, these are things for the future, and these methods are banned here. Some are sad and some are happy. Because some people's methods are really related to certain prohibited items in the rules, now the entire method is lost, and the combat ability is reduced by several %. Jia Yan is the calm type. His methods have nothing to do with what is written in the rules. Rules cannot prohibit all conventional means. This is competition that allows them to grow, rather than restricting them. After removing the ability to defy the will of the gods and the ability to use external force, all that is left is the actual combat power of fighting hard. There is also a need to develop the power behind it. That's right. If everyone relies on their abilities in competition, such strong people will not be perfect. Jia Yan looked thoughtful after reading the rules. The first round of competition has begun. I hope I can see you all again next time. Goodbye. The figure in the light group made this sound calmly, and the figure in the many rays of light felt an irresistible force pushing itself. Jia Yan also felt the overwhelming force. In the panic, he had an idea and shouted loudly towards the light group person who made the sound, "Senior, I am also from the Milky Way. Please take care of me, Senior." He only felt a few eyes sweeping over him, and his whole body seemed to have fallen into an ice cellar. I was numb and unable to move for a long time. When he regained consciousness, he returned to the retreat place just now. Is this a consciousness trip? I don't seem to have the appearance of the past. What kind of method is this? Jia Yan was amazed. This should be a high energy level above the lower level of Domain Lord. Hands-on means. Such a method is unfathomable, and you still call it a galaxy level? Hey, the malicious intent of the people who divide the galaxy into levels is too great. Jia Yan shook his head. He decided to regard the masters at the supreme level above the territory lord as great powers instead of putting them on the same level as other galaxy level masters. That would not only be disrespectful to the powers, but also this caused his own misunderstanding, and he really thought that they were on the same level as himself. After actually seeing the opponent's methods, after a lot of troubles, I have already lost the terror of the powerful people. All it takes to kill yourself is a thought. I don't know if the senior who ordered the rules heard those words just now. He clearly felt that the last coldness was that all the top powerful beings were sweeping towards him. A full 5 of them almost made his blood freeze at a glance. Regardless of whether it's useful or not, it shouldn't do any harm. There is no way the powerful men would kill him themselves if they were unhappy with what he said. That would be too unsenior-like. What's more, the great power that belongs to the galaxy will probably not let others do this. After all, they are all members of the family, right? Far away in the sky, I don't know where. Amid the mist. The 5 figures looked at the countless light groups that had disappeared. Someone said teasingly, "A junior from the Milky Way has recognized you. What are you going to do? Are you really going to take care of this person?" The speaker glanced at the person who was in charge earlier. The latter is rock solid. How is it possible? As for the participants of each session, what we need to maintain is absolute fairness. This kid wants to go through the back door. Not only will I not give him the opportunity to go through the back door, I will also observe him more strictly. If it is through the butt, I can't blame myself for the competition. I hope you are telling the truth, then I'll see you later. The figures of the other 4 top experts flickered, and soon one and two of them disappeared. Only that person glanced at the direction Jia Yan left before, shook his head, and disappeared in an instant. Successfully participating in the competition means that I will face the same group of beings in the future. It has been stated in the rules that in fact the participants are not all on this continent, but are distributed among the 7 participating countries. Between 10 continents. There are a total of 70 continents, which means that there are only a few or 10 competitors at most in each continent and the surrounding sea areas. However, I am afraid that if I change it, I will be traveling between continents. Of course, you must pass the initial competition. Jia Yan could not bear to discuss the rules and how to compete in the future with Haitian now. Different from the past, they are now competitors. If he, a competitor, goes to Haitian's territory, his identity may be noticed by the opponent immediately. The original friendly attitude may turn over the boat of friendship when you discover your identity. I remember that I encountered that being in the subspace not far away. If this person did not block him intentionally, it means that he may be developing nearby. There is another one in the island area. Jia Yan was thinking about whether to take the initiative to approach. The rules of competition are clearly written. At the beginning, it is a better method to take advantage of the surrounding enemies to be weaker and eradicate these potential enemies as soon as possible. After thinking about it for a while, he denied it repeatedly. Not to mention whether he can deal with those existences single-handedly now. It's just that no one has developed yet, and no one has what competitors need. If you fight for life and death, and you get nothing, maybe both sides will suffer, and a third party will be killed. Opportunity later. Currently used, it is the most complete and best used app for listening to books. It integrates 4 major speech synthesis engines, over 100 kinds of sounds, and even supports offline. The artifact of reading aloud, app. It's better to follow the rules and develop first, but the 2 options I face now are a bit of a headache. Is it to return to the Imperial Island and continue to use the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce's gimmick to hide its own purpose and gain development opportunities from competitors? Or should we start development on the spot or in a new hidden location? This is a dilemma. If the Imperial Island had not exposed its existence to a large extent, it would be a good option, because there already has a relatively mature subordinate system and even a strong business system. As soon as you run over, you can follow the rules and start developing vigorously without falling too far behind others. But the problem is that his goal for the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is too big. Maybe several competitors already knew of his existence, and the noodle creature from before was one of them. Maybe at that time, the other party had already estimated whether Jia Yan was one of the participants and came here specifically to test. Now Jia Yan goes back and uses the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce's trade routes to find things for development. Such a simple and blatant search will soon reveal his existence. No, I can't go back to the island, but I can't abandon the path of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, otherwise I will ruin my own future. Others have been developing secretly for who knows how long. Jia Yan doesn't believe that his Galaxy Chamber of Commerce will be much stronger than theirs. Find bookstore. But if he doesn't even borrow it from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, then he is giving up. Well, let's do this. I will try my best to convene a group of core members of the Galaxy Hawaii Association, and then ask them to search for me and find various ways to hide my good purpose. In this way, I can hide it as much as possible. My figure, oh yes. His eyes lit up. Since Haitian is a participant, can he deliberately lead others to mistakenly believe that the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is searching for participants' supplies for Haitian's sake? Sorry, old man, I have no choice but to hide it as much as possible. Jia Yan mentally apologized to the old guy. Then he finalized these ideas and became one of his decisions. In this way, one day in the future, Hai Tian, who originally thought that he was hiding in the deep mountains and old forests, and no one knew about it, would probably not be able to guess who was setting him up when he faced an enemy. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3398. Jia Yan would not admit it anyway. Then let's start from the first step. First, we must recruit secret people from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce to become my private army. Hua Xiang is definitely needed. She will become my main work and help role, and her future identity will only be under me. The means of the clone are also essential. In this way, his abilities and the choices he can make will become broader. This is the reason why so-called competitors need to develop their power. Jia Yan sighed, and then took out the communicator. After half a day, he put down the communication with satisfaction. Maybe Hua Xiang had roughly guessed something before Jia Yan became mysterious. So she tacitly agreed not to ask Jia Yan whether he had got the ticket. Anyway, it was not something she could covet. Lord Jia Yan, there was an aura just now at the Chamber of Commerce headquarters. I covered it up so no one could feel it. Can you tell me what happened? Therefore, Jia Yan's first target is still placed under the existence of the island. There would be no legitimate reason to transform part of the force into a navy. Who? Did you feel my presence until just now? The charm of the old helper. Hua Xiang holds many secrets about Jia Yan. Even if his response was a little faster that time, I would definitely kill him or imprison him. Before the start of the small war, the dynasty was already worried about the reaction of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. After the huge army has not been completely transformed, we will all worry about the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce's defection and taking away the fruits of failure. The battle of competitors is not that complicated. It's also a matter of silence. Just rush over and take a look and you will know what the situation is. You have no chance when you are old. You still prefer to eradicate this guy. Whether it is because he has less information about you or because I am the target of your talent hedging, this person is a small enemy. It is a pity that you still have, if you have even the slightest bit of information about me, it is possible to find and kill. At this time, I was using my unique skills to observe the capable man. The being identified by Zhang Yan was vomiting blood and his eyes were about to burst. The subordinate who calmly knocked him away had shock in his eyes. To be honest, Jia Yan really wanted to get less information from Haitian. It's also eye-catching. The white figure disappeared in the corner of the office. Therefore, before paying a certain price, Bai Shen had already received the inheritance of deeds from his true body. Here comes a guy who seems extremely scary. That's not enough. Jia Yan needs that team to gradually become the prototype of his team for fighting in the inner world. No matter how bad the relationship was, I would still act like that because it was for everyone's lives. Sure enough, you are trustworthy. Because my death and injury alone do not represent myself. I hope that person didn't feel the threat from you and gave up on being vigilant about subspace. The bad thing is that I am worried about this matter. Hua Xiang is indeed a trustworthy partner. When Jia Yan rushed to the island, he saw a scene that made me deeply realize that the battle between competitors is not less terrifying. Just do what comes to mind. My arrangement is to separate the several domestic combat forces of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, and none of them will be converted into maritime forces, that is, the Navy. Of course, even if you become an auxiliary, you may be promoted successfully. He felt that this so-called aura might be related to him becoming a competitor. Jia Yan decided on the first competition to kill as soon as he read the rules. I became alert. This giant tree. In the first round of competition, you only need to kill one of the same competitors to get a chance in the 7th round. After all, favor is the most trustworthy thing. The bad thing is that the opponent's performance did not surprise Jia Yan. Breath. You should consider the possessor to be the worst candidate I have ever seen on this island. When I rushed to the mainland one after another, I passed him outside the subspace. The visitor had an intense look on his face, looking directly at the messy battlefield above. I had to do it quietly. The fact that he did something for a long time showed that the clone judged that Hua-Xiang would not betray the possibility. My expression changed slightly, but at the same time, I also noticed that the other party also felt me in the subspace. Because you are a pre-region domain lord who has been weakly promoted, and the promotion time is too short, and your background is a bit lacking, so you may be promoted at the same time as Jia Yan. It cannot be explained in the information that you will get opportunities from competitors, and even some of them will be promoted successfully. But the disadvantages are certain, and they will definitely play a huge role in future promotions. Wow! I never thought that the boy next to you would actually belong to someone else. So others may be defensive. Rumble, rumble. Jia Yan's successful promotion seems to have such obvious disadvantages for other collaborators. The second step is to mobilize a small amount of resources, which is quite complicated. The resources of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce have been mobilizing all the time, and they are stretched to various small islands and small continents. Now I only need to intersperse some of them and send them to that building. Just an island. Next is the establishment of certain secret agencies, which is the most difficult. Jia Yan now requires Hua-Xiang to be hardworking and take care of all the affairs under his control, otherwise others will be trustworthy. Hua-Xiang bit her lips and swore secretly. It seems that I know people well. I have been with you for 1,000 years, but I know that you is the person assigned to you for this mission, and there is no one else. At least you, who originally dared to think about the word Xiaonang, now have thoughts. The next competition will be more brutal, but there is no way around it. I delve into subspace. I can't explain it clearly. Even though I read the rules, my eyes still went blank. For a subspace expert like me, it is difficult to observe the atmosphere and traces inside the subspace. Jia Yan's real body has been feeling the fluctuations of energy. Who is his master? Jia Yan spoke eloquently. I ask seriously. Let out a long breath. I must say that I am not confident that I can get some soup with Huaxiang, so others may get too little benefit through that competition. The same competitor who possesses the same subspace talent and seems to know Jia Yan well is the one I am even more afraid of. A long leg like a spider stepped heavily from under the giant tree on the edge of the island. The appearance of the breath may be some kind of mark. This is bad. I am really afraid that a male superior who has trained a young man will not have the heart to be a subordinate. I saw that the person I identified as the first target to be killed was hit in the body by a hidden superior next to him. From outside the rules, Jia Yan saw that the disadvantages of killing another competitor were extremely small. It turns out that this so-called battle of holders has not ended since I was summoned by the powerful ones. Apart from me, there are no other subdimensional masters. Within the subspace, I felt the atmosphere outside the subspace, but my expression did not change. But for the huge Galaxy Chamber of Commerce in front of me, and even the countless people in the commercial area, as well as the Geo family, if something happens to me, it will mean the loss of life. Even though until a few days later, Jia Yan acted as if he had obtained the ticket, you still believed. In fact, you had no idea that Jia Yan might get the ticket. Jia Yan sighed. Auxiliary to competitors. But regarding this matter, you yourself have received too little information. It is certain that in the competition going forward, you will see the small disadvantages that special helpers may gain. So others will inevitably gain less than me, but I still know it now. There is nothing metaphysical about this matter, and it probably cannot be classified as a male's eighth sense. Creak. At least the sense of coercion under the surface is much weaker than that of Jia Yan and the injured person inside. Huaxiang hung up the communication. The aftermath of the shaking of the earth and the mountains is broken. Yes, I have sealed it. With my speed and the strength of the masters in Xian City now, it is not foolproof. I can guarantee that there is a 90% chance that no one will sense this breath. It gives me a very strange feeling. as if facing an existence that cannot be resisted. The fragrance of flowers must be worthy of my trust, so there will be no one I can trust. The closer to the competition stage, the more vigilant people should be. It must be weak enough, if you can't feel me in the subspace for the first time, but the other party doesn't. This side of Haitian. Besides, he has been a star thief for half his life. Little man, these words cannot be said purely in words. To you, you are the guide who leads you to the front level. You are no different from your reborn parents. Whether you are an assistant or something else. Please feel free to speak, you are at your disposal. Zhang Yan felt her heart twitch suddenly in the subspace. It should be this noodle-like creature. Do I know that you are retreating on that island? That's right, did you make too much noise while you were retreating there? Let me think of the next time you suddenly meet with him. Maybe the other party's home base is also too far away. The early stage is the incubation period. All competitors are like retreating into the dark forest. Anyone who speaks out will be killed by others. The Gangbad dynasty is in the ascendant. It must be said that this is an island competitor who knows his existence, and the harm to Jia Yan is small. The other competitors don't seem to have a lot of helpers, and they are willing to do so, so they can always get the chance to be promoted to the level of Xiaonang, right? Otherwise, it would take a lot of effort for Bai Shen's clone to take care of the male superior in front of the territory lord. But today it was verified and your eighth sense came true. Jia Yan felt that he thought less. Is it about looking at it from a distance or from a weak or strong perspective? That is to say, if I rush to find someone, the unique rules among competitors will make Haitian aware of my identity immediately, and Jia Yan can guarantee whether he will secretly kill me beforehand. It's better to wait until you don't have the confidence to cooperate with me. Now, it's not good to do your own research, and don't you have a target? Far away at the headquarters of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, your mood is not ups and downs. And if the other party has maintained those measures until now, it will be much more difficult for me to take action against them. That's right. He probably hasn't guessed yet. You have become a possessor. I will tell him later about the specific situation. Now you just want to ask, is he willing to help you? Apart from competing for fewer benefits, wouldn't there be any harm to these collaborators if they become weaker? Because now, sitting outside the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce or the trading area, I am almost in a hostile state. The only pity is that I still made the other party a little wary and took ineffective defensive measures against subspace. Judging from the traces, no one has used the surrounding subspace in recent decades. In order to make the master of the subspace feel like he is special and read the traces of my flight outside the subspace, Jia Yan was very careful when traveling through the subspace. He not only flew fast, but also wiped the air in front of him. The traces of space make it difficult to read my presence. For example, the person who died in the Magellanic Cloud, or the noodle competitor with a complicated sequence. This is bad. He has to hide his lower level first. Although this matter would have been noticed before, it is now. And as an auxiliary, he will increase in strength as you become weaker. In the specific situation, he cannot go find some relevant information and read it yourself. Just don't talk much, you have to tell him a few things. But it is absolutely allowable for two competitors to face each other directly. I hesitated in my heart. Mr. Zhang Yan knows that you have already had a premonition that one day, and you have done a lot of research on the degenerate. I have obtained a lot of information, and you have read a lot, so in that case, I'm afraid I don't know much more than the villain. Xian. Those are all low-level players with the same talent who cannot compare to Jia Yan's subdimensional ability. Shirakami was always far away. Hai Tian, who is always resting, seems to be reliable, but the first-hand information prepared by such a young man should not be much better than Jia Yan, at least it will make me blind. You understand what you mean? As soon as the message was connected, Jia Yan was startled. The worst thing is that everyone will think that I am a businessman. When others are beaten to a bloody head, I will be the first to show up. Now that the villain has lost his ticket, such a huge opportunity is in front of you. Not only for the villain, but also for yourself, you must go all out. Maybe it will last a lifetime. That chance, Xian. Jia Yan put a small stone in his heart. I am sure that if the clone starts fighting, the power of devouring the real body will end, so that I can also know the situation in Xiancheng. Click. In this way, the first and most capable superior has been lost. The next step is how to push back the least colleagues while still making us feel betrayed. That is the most difficult point. Then I hid my body deeper into the subspace. The role of an assistant is very important. I am sure that if I have a few trustworthy assistants, I will have difficulty in the future. Perhaps what others know is that Jia Yan is not yet able to use subspace techniques to transfer part of his ontological memory to his clone in a distant place. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3399. In order to lay out this plan, I have placed people around you and have been hiding for 1500 years. Chang Lai, you should feel honored that you died under my plan. Woo woo. Ha ha ha, it has been laid out for 1500 years, how perverted you are. I was just born 1500 years ago. Jia Yan listened to the conversations outside and suddenly understood. The person who was attacked was actually a genius who was only 1500 years old. But the other party was even more incredible. He even placed chess pieces around a newly born opponent. It would be impossible for Jia Yan to prevent it. Who would guard against someone who has watched him grow up? Is it a conspiracy? This so-called battle of competitors has extended so long ago. Woo! He secretly sighed. Seeing the existence of the newly flying spider, he said calmly, in fact, I have made similar arrangements around you and your brothers. I didn't expect that it would be you who made it to the end. As long as there is no chance, whether it is Guan Jiayan or the spider creature, they will choose to attack and hurt people immediately. Damn it! Formation path. Although the spider creature was followed by several more of the same former domain lords and subordinates, they could not surpass the opponent's 7. Woo! So I deliberately led him in a circle until he reached a large island close to the young man's island, or an island and reef, and then I took him out of the subspace. As soon as the formation was opened, the blocking function was completely dismantled everywhere as far as the eye could see. The strength of both sides is shown on paper. Although Jia Yan may be the enemy of the other side, in short, they are at a close level. What's even more exaggerated is that the opponent has defeated an entire army. Now that I'm here, the only person I can turn to for help is Jia Yan. You can always ask the other party to fight back. You can only blame yourself for kicking the iron plate. Jia Yan said with a ferocious smile. Is that so? Woo! Just as the other party was pondering and waiting for Jia Yan's conditions, he felt a sudden distortion in the subspace. How is it? How does it feel to be the best in the world and crawl on other people's feet? You know, the other party has been planning for this spider for a long time, but unexpectedly, he was disturbed halfway by Chen Yaojin. He couldn't help but swim deeper into subspace. What resulted was a fierce blow from the spider creature. You can be promoted by killing one person. Should I choose a more senior person and cooperate with the other party to seek skin from the tiger? However, Jia Yan thought of it no matter what, but things didn't change. Woo! The spider creature's eyes became serious. I looked up. No wonder Jia Yan didn't feel the other party's appearance just now. Jinwan looked in front of him with great pleasure, and saw that the people in front of him had not yet grown up and were arranging their methods towards the subspace. Your Majesty, you have worked hard. This spider thread is your life spider thread. He lost it in a short while. He sees that these guys have finished preparing subspace attacks again. I know that his methods are vulgar. But if you keep defending, the opponent will always find an opportunity. How about running away with me? Jia Yantu also flew forward and backward. Just like others, Jia Yan, as a competitor, actually has many tricks. Woo! My strength is extremely low end, but I can't suppress the 7 figures who joined forces to attack me. The other party got a little angry. No matter how weak the opponent is, he is a front-level domain lord, but when attacked by a small group of inferior players of the same level, he can only feel no resentment. I'm thinking about it in my mind. Click. Everything shows that the battle between the possessors is not as complicated as I imagined. Jinwan was shocked. Woo! Jia Yan was slightly moved when he heard what the other party said. How did that person practice? How could he be so powerful at the same level? Roar! A mysterious energy pierced through the subspace and stabbed hard in front of Jia Yan. I'm stupid again. Found you. But the feeling of getting it is like an attack. Woo! That spider thread is too difficult to get. When the spider creature came to the ground, waves of explosions suddenly erupted under the ground. Including the current Jia Yan, I always feel that even if I use all my methods, I will be able to get rid of me who is not seriously injured. Ha ha ha, he thinks that this galaxy is next to your galaxy, so will he be more careful about him? Your father has already made an appointment with those comrades to protect him. Although the price paid is staggering, it is also in line with the rules. Today is not the day when he, who is known as an enemy, dies outside. That's what is so stupid. As I retreated, the two sides in this battle had become reversed. I felt a certain sense of security and decided to let go. Woo! Even that level of space can be solidified, which shows that the equipment in the opponent's hands far exceeds that of the Milky Way. It is impossible to say that the certain technology also exceeds that of the Milky Way. Poof! As a non-subspace gifted creature, it was not beyond Jia Yan's expectation to be able to protect himself in the subspace of the outer world. The winners and losers and the weak and strong are clear at a glance. If he dared to stop anywhere else, he would rush forward with a fierce thrust and move forward into the distance of the subspace. Puff! The young competitor looked down at the man on his feet with absolute arrogance. Woo! The low-ranking front-level master of the dignified top domain was completely crushed into a ball of flesh and blood by the subspace of the outer world. What made Jia Yan's heart feel even more chilling was that the other party just felt his presence next time and deployed subspace blocking equipment for such a long time. Is he a rescuer? So. The power of this blockade is indeed very weak, but its targeting is too single. The opponent's strength is weak, but my strengths are the subspace talent and the strength of the formation. If we really want to fight, I feel that even if I succeed, I will probably be killed. The subspace quickly solidified like a squirming tide. Definitely, it's like picking up the pie in the world for yourself. Woo! I know Jinwan can save me. Jinwan's eyes were dark. I'm hard to kill. Revenge is something in the future. However, as Jinwan's test unfolded and I used all my methods, my face gradually became more and more bad-looking. The terrible subspace talent, quack, hurry up, hold on tight. Your Excellency, please take action. If I am saved, I will repay you with a spring woo-woo. Jia Yan was shocked again when he heard this, and couldn't help but look at the spider creature again. It is difficult to locate the opponent outside the subspace. I'm throwing away the thread. But what I didn't expect was that the opponent either dodged or evaded, and used his own flesh and blood to withstand Jinwan's attack. Buzz buzz. Both sides look like enemies but not enemies, and look like friends but not friends. That spider creature is obviously a guy with extremely rich means. Woo! I looked towards where Jia Yan was. Crunch. The spider's flesh and blood spewed out a small piece of spider silk, and the spider silk wrapped my whole body, layer after layer, layer after layer. It was Ji Fanji, who had probably been around since he was 100 years old. The mass of flesh and blood has become nearly 700 kilometers away, which shows how amazing the defenses are. Want to kill me? It's so complicated. After holding on for a moment, Jinwan suddenly stopped with his compound eyes flashing. It's bad. A very strange method. Woo. This space visitor? Sure enough, he is also a competitor? Turn on the subspace blocker for you and intercept me too. Or if this young man is allowed to stay on that island, he will be able to fight back in the future when Jia Yan has no more targeted measures. Your Excellency, he wants to get a promotion opportunity. You only want a few of his treasures. You can't cooperate at all. Although if I were placed outside the subspace, that ball of spider thread could move on its own, but now that my natal spider thread is hanging under Jia Yan's body, naturally I still have no ability to move. No one immediately obeyed the order and quickly activated the so-called subspace blocker. Several figures appeared in the air, causing Jia Yan's breathing to slow down. Feeling the crisis coming in the subspace, Jia Yan was frightened. Woo. In addition to this, one who seemed to be seriously injured, but actually very slowly jumped up and attacked the leader of the spider creature. A total of 8 small top-level domain lords were attacking that person. One of the spider's legs severely knocked one person away, but another one hit him on the belly of the spider in front of him, causing him to stumble to the ground. What the hell? What kind of battle is that? I turned around. It's worse to stay supported. The power of the array is used at full power to break the opponent's entire blockade. It's obviously a level character. Woo. When there was no one else, I rushed over with a low hand and punched him until he staggered out. Just as Jia Yan's expression changed slightly and he was about to throw away the spider thread, he saw this critical spider creature leaping into the subspace after being attacked by a low-hand man in front of him. Why? Oh? Does Your Excellency know that for a competitive project, do you want to eliminate a competitor? If this is given to you, how will you get promoted? Just rolled onto the opponent's feet. You just want to test the capabilities of your collaborator. Your Excellency, please hold on for a while. If you meet your psychological requirements, you can cooperate with him. So I'm worried about whether the other party is playing tricks. Woo. I agreed to his request. Save my life now. It's just that this spider silk defense is too weird. Once Jia Yan twists a piece of subspace and tears off part of the spider silk, the opponent will release a new part to fill it up. He dares. But as a top-low player, his methods are endless and limited. My heart beat like a drum and I slowly moved forward. Lay out a potential enemy room from the birth of the other party to 1,700 years ago. No matter where these people come from, it would be an exaggeration to say that their galaxy cluster is as big as the local galaxy cluster where the Milky Way is located. Woo. And the person who can win the title of the most powerful master in this galaxy cluster is definitely not weak in strength. It was said by Hidden Pavilion that I am still not confident in my own strength. If I join forces with you and kill this X, you should turn around and leave on the spot to find another competitor to kill. The young creature's expression changed and he gave orders to some people in front of him. However, if you want to block the subspace and engage in me, and it is in the subspace of the outside world, I can only tell the other party, he thinks too little. You can't even plan for the smallest harm to yourself. But that kind of power was restrained by the few low hands that flew out. Woo. Why did he save a being who might be better than him in terms of strength out of revenge? The spider creature spat blood in front of it and spoke to Jia Yan. Jia Yan felt like he was sweating like liquid. I can guarantee that if I were to appear, this young genius master and my 7 invited masters would be able to kill the spider creature together. There was only one low-level player that I couldn't find, and 7 more people appeared. Jia Yan turned around with a slight change of expression, and swept the power of the formation against the power thrust by the opponent. Yes, I did cause trouble later. Woo! How is that possible? You have also seen that I am not familiar with the subspace, and I will definitely start a confrontation with you. You can only look back and sigh. You are the one who is so hardworking and asking for trouble. You have offended a small enemy for no reason. Spider thread. It's a very weak force, comparable to the guys I'm chasing in front of you. If you escape again, if you are also forced out of the subspace, you may end up in the same situation as me. We are all the inferiors of your galaxy cluster. Hand, I am careful when encountering one, they are all so vicious. I and the 8 low-hand companions in front of me burst in one after another, shouting that it was me. My body retreating into subspace was not just a weird loud noise. Amidst the whistling sound, the spider thread in front of him was stretched long, carrying it back. Your methods are indeed vulgar. You have passed my test. Please let me go, woo-woo. I can definitely kill a competitor of the same level here, and I'm not even willing to cooperate with him. Jinwan did not belittle himself too much. Take the hell out of him. Jia Yan took a deep look at the ball of spider flesh, threw the thread closer, and violently broke into the depths of the subspace at extremely low speed. The most powerful person in this galaxy cluster. I'm wrong, I said it was a test, but in reality I didn't go all out. The spider creature's demeanor suddenly became extremely ugly. Woo! The spider creature is not very weak yet, and all kinds of strange powers are being released under my spider legs. Jia Yan is frightened when he feels it up close. The most powerful person in the local galaxy cluster, still doing such a thing. Seeing Jia Yan's reply, the spider creature had an ugly expression. Saving an unlikely enemy was like shooting oneself in the foot. Everyone is vague that the so-called cooperation is a desperate move that is achieved after everyone takes advantage of the other party's inability to do anything. I'm just trying to catch the autumn wind later, but I actually want to catch you all in one go. Goo. Woo. Jinwan summed it up internally and externally for a moment. The two sides are separated by a spider's thread, Jia Yan observed in front of him, and the other party was also wary of Jia Yan while silently cultivating. But I was seriously injured and my attack power was greatly reduced. I saw Nian Zhong calmly jumped out of the way with his lower hand. Now let's see how this spider creature kills the opponent. My expression is full and growing. Why can't you doubt that before you cooperated with him, his last target was not you? He also knew that if he killed the person in front of him like that, he would be considered as killing himself. Woo! I am still alive, even though I have turned into a ball of flesh and blood, I still rush towards Jia Yan. Jia Yan raised his toes and pierced the approaching mass of flesh. Quack, quack, quack. But my eyes are still there, and the whole look is sinister and full of madness. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3400. Puff. In the dark night sky, a crack quickly enlarged. Soon, a figure pulled another shadow out and galloped out, and the space behind it naturally shrank and closed until it disappeared. This figure seemed like a ghost, flying close to the ground like a shadow, and jumped directly into the hole of a tree. It was as if he had been here many times and was extremely familiar with it. Okay, friends, please come out. The space of the tree hole is very large. After all, it is only a few thousand kilometers high, but it is also hundreds of kilometers in diameter. There was no sound for a long time and the cocoon-like thing transformed into a mass of flesh and blood, and then a heart-wrenching sound of tearing could be heard. A brand new spider leg appeared outside the spider silk cocoon, followed by its newly formed body. The spider creature stepped out of his protective cocoon, his gaze unwavering. I know you are being vague, but what kind of methods does Chang Lai have? Are they just these low-level players who are helping me? Ren Song was about to speak but stopped. Zhen Jiayan thinks that I have been developed by Edisha in many ways, and that way of controlling me is not the latest technique you have developed. The Spider King looked like Bo and nodded, that's right. Chang Lai seems to be an ordinary person, but I am able to defeat all the heroes in a weak galaxy and become the only one in this generation who has retreated to the outside world to make money. Those who are qualified for promotion must have more complicated methods. I am sure that my methods are special. With your ability, do you still need to arrange for such a long time and assassinate? But Daoli is a person of faith, and a few words from the other party Zhong Piaopio are enough to determine whether he will abandon himself and run away at the moment of fierce battle. It is doubtful that the other party will be able to do such a thing with his character. To be honest, even if the opponent's strength has plummeted, Daoli still has nothing to worry about. But judging from the surface, his momentum is like a rainbow, and he should have used some secret method to restore most of his combat power. How could I have expected that there is no fool out there? Well, it would be completely peaceful. Jia Yan knew that the other party would not simply recover. What I plan to use is the monastic technique from the outside world. A small circle of light bloomed in the opponent's Jia Yan. The matter was relieved for a while. Others may regard it as another kind of cultivation technique, not to mention that when that kind of cultivation technique goes into the universe, its power will be directly halved, or even a small part will be lost. He's telling you, what else can I do? I was silent for a moment, and finally nodded naturally. Buzz. Daoli is blunt and taboo. The people who arranged it for me were instigated by others, and they turned back on me. I was still looking so awe-inspiring, I'm afraid I had forgotten how embarrassed I was just now. Anyway, I believe it. He said that to help you kill your enemy, you need the number of kills. I suspect you have noticed that your strength is at his level and you want to find another suitable killer. I'm afraid it will take some trouble. The spider creature snorted hotly. At the moment, Ren Song is not using Jia Yan's skills as a guise to explore the opponent's body, and then attack and prepare, and input the formation control skills into the opponent's body. Is it possible for that kind of person to follow Daoli through life and death just because of his kindness? What Daoli said seemed to reassure me, but for me, the more I heard such words, the less vigilant I became about the situation. The spider creature's eyes gradually relaxed. It was using hands to make both parties feel a little worse. Then forget it. Speaking of low-handedness, Daoli couldn't help but marvel slightly. There are a total of 7 top bad guys, and it seems that each one of them has a frontal combat capability that is better than Ren Song, or even vaguely weaker. Have you ever wondered how you would kill your little enemy? My name is Chang Lai, right? You said I haven't made a move yet. Could it be that in the battle with you, I actually didn't do it? Did you use all your strength? At the same time, my vigilance was at its lowest. That's right. I have been in seclusion here for several years. That was the first time I heard about the Milky Way's past participation in the war from the mouths of other masters in my galaxy. It would be too much to make Xiao Fang laugh if a dignified person who had no chance to be promoted to the level of Xiao Neng went to develop monastic skills. That ray of power did not break Xiao's eye, but instead swept over several seriously injured places like a spring breeze, gradually repairing the injuries. The spider creature looked back and looked at Daoli calmly. Jia Yan quietly released the attack energy that had been brewing for a long time. With the strength shown by that person, how could he be threatened by a slightly stronger domain lord like me? I deny that I did it wrong, but it is still easy to delay the fight. Moreover, it must be using some unique skills, so there is no chance of killing it by chance. Your Majesty has made a completely correct decision. You will be disappointed. Your name is Rensong and you come from the Milky Way. Coincidentally, your galaxy cluster is also called the local galaxy cluster, but you are not the first rank of the lord of your galaxy domain. A low hand, but you suspect that with your subspace skills, even the first low hand can't do anything to you. I don't have any comfortable feelings, but if I casually comprehend it, I can feel the pure Jia Yan of the outer world flowing inside my body. Daolai said solemnly, I'm sorry, Your Excellency, you have used that technique very few times, and this is your first time actually applying it. Please be considerate. There is nothing comfortable in the process, so I'll tell you. Is that the secluded place in the pavilion outside? It looks like that to me. The spider creature's eyes flashed, and it even wanted to do something drastic. But I resisted the thought of continuing to inquire. Oh? The skills in the outer world, does he mean Jia Yan? Does a person like you still need to practice Rensong in the outer world? Rensong is bound to my body, so can I try the risky move of detonating the mosquito creature behind my eyes while still being safe? Because the formation must be sprinkled in small pieces, the opponent will notice it if it takes too long. The energy gradually spread to its body, and the bones of the newborn spider developed an instinctive power of resistance. No wonder, after he sees this guy's background, he will treat him as a soft persimmon. If it were you, he would choose me. However, that is his business. If he really wants to kill me, you can help him. It's not enough to lend a helping hand, but it's okay to take revenge yourself. An energy that belongs to me is wandering inside my body, and it belongs to any familiar system, causing my eyes to become increasingly weird. After thinking about it, the spider creature suddenly laughed. The two looked at each other again, both showing a slight smile. The foreshadowing was laid, and a full day passed. It was not until the other party's face became more and more bad-looking, and he was about to explode, that the sparkle in his compound eyes flashed away. That's the case. The spider creature was stunned for a moment, and then its eyes became even weirder. The Milky Way? How many top-notch galaxies have produced in the past? Your galaxy often produces low-level players. I never thought that during that trial, no one like you was born. The spider creature felt that its body was wrapped in some weird power. However, Rensong's compound eyes flashed with a light. Well, none of the skills you learned from the outside world are used to fulfill the agreement between the two parties. If my dear brother cares, you can use it, and you will not guarantee that there will be betrayers on both sides. Daolai Xiao Yan said with shame. That's right. You and I didn't intend to form an alliance. Why are you so entangled? Well, although it's a little late, you are now officially acquainted. Your name is Spider King. You come from the Spider Galaxy. This generation is from this galaxy. The first low hand in front of the regiment. If it is the opponent's regular front hand, this power will not go very far. After all, there are not so many low hands to protect it. Even if I am a low hand in the subspace, the one who wants to assassinate is not as good as me. The opponent doesn't have a blood feud like the Spider King, so it's like killing another target. That time, the spider creature did not show the same fighting spirit as before. And that kind of skill is one size fits all. Before mastering it, no matter what race it is, as long as it is a tribe that has no body, it is impossible to control it successfully. I watched the fight just now. One person beat 7 low-handed people who were probably still under the power of Taoism. He was only injured but died. That kind of ability made my scalp numb. The opponent's momentum seems to be wrong, but as a low-level player of the same level, how can I be as powerful as me? The opponent's physical condition is definitely poor, otherwise he would have taken action long ago. The mosquito creature behind the eyes also has no similar energy flowing. It's as if I can detonate the same kind of power inside the opponent's body with just a thought. Rensong said, his eyes sharpened, and a sense of oppression faintly came from underneath him. The guy said something bad about the front hand. It is indeed extremely fair. As soon as the two met, they started to quarrel with each other. Daoli spoke seriously, putting little pressure on the other party. No, you also know these low-level players. They are the existences invited by my family. I am afraid that as early as today, I will learn from the betrayer you arranged that you will take action. So he invited these low-level players to help him later. Even so, these few may always stay by his side, and with their family background, they can still do it to that extent. The spider creature spoke openly. But at least in the outside world, Xiu Jiayan's strength is still quite weak. Very sincere. The work is done. Your Excellency, you can't worry anymore. Based on that friendly monastic contract, he and you will be your eternal allies. The spider creature looked at the tree hole and made a judgment before taking a careless look at some of the life training equipment outside. Under my guidance, the entire lower level of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has also dabbled in the research of Xiu Jiayan quantity. However, this seemingly widespread behavior is not the norm among the visitors in the whole world, and it cannot even be said to be unusual. Oh, my friend, have you recovered your strength? My subspace is mediocre, but it's your resilience that makes me look at you in a new light. So what are you going to say when your Excellency invites you here? Even Adisha herself did it so perfectly because of her abundant energy. Wei Wu Daoli is the most suitable person for this technique. I could see the battle between the two forces just now. The spider creature had been planning for 1,700 years just to kill this young genius. I regard it as the thing with the heart of the Tao. I swallow it to know how little it is and how much it is. In this way, if Jia Yan wants to break the contract and kill the opponent, he has to weigh his own strength. Rensong recalled the so-called number one he had faced off against in the Central Star territory. It's really okay. I can't consider old brother Hai Tian. Although he is not a human being at all, there is no other way. Therefore, my confidence is definitely greater than that of the other party. It's a reminder that you'll do the same thing. Dolly laughed. The other person's face was filled with surprise. Of course it's impossible. It's too powerful. It only needs to show a certain amount of control and influence in battles or important moments. It shows that the other party's connections are terrifying to a frightening level. What else can I say in terms of the situation where people are treated like fish and meat? Both sides are very careful, but whether the other party feels it, Daoli's control power is very obscure, and it is difficult to detect no matter how careful he is. In fact, I stayed here for a few days, and the traces left were very shallow. I thought the other party could easily tell, but both sides were a little confused. A ray of resentment in his eyes flashed away, and he said calmly, "Well, since he is your savior, let's do what he wants. If you feel any tricks that are harmless to you in the middle, you will interrupt with all your strength. With his skills, if there are no casualties in the process, don't blame me for turning against him and admitting it." Daoli was slightly surprised. "Thank you very much. The subdimensional power you possess is really an eye-opener for me. The Dao force is carefully carved into every piece of formation technique. Even for practitioners, it is difficult to delve into the cultivation techniques of the outside world. It is almost completely different from the traditional cultivation methods outside the universe, and how can it be used outside the universe? If it's physical, there's nothing wrong with it. You advised me to take risks. After all, you built the Taoist technique yourself. If you are impulsive, you will definitely die. But your death is certain, or do you want to try it with your own life? That is also a technology that only Daoli can use at this stage. But on the deliberate relaxation of spider creatures, that kind of power gradually integrated into my body. My body is extremely weak and tough, and I have died from so few low-handed attacks, which shows that my endurance is terrifying. In those years, because I didn't have the opportunity to join the ranks of so-called competitors, I didn't give much thought to my own cultivation, and because I learned that many cultivation techniques were not helpful to me, I never stopped. The study of monastic techniques. The spider creature glanced at Daoli up and down, and asked strangely, with all due respect, I'm afraid you are young. What? Yes, Xiao, what does he want to say? Why do I want to study Taoism skills? I asked my superior to ask, and he only had to answer, yes or no. Beings who came to the outside world, the possessors naturally practiced their original cultivation methods more faithfully, waiting for the opportunity to be promoted. At this moment, the spider creature felt that its entire body was enveloped by some strange force. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3401. The other little kitten demon is also here with the young man, but I haven't seen her anywhere, and I don't know if she has left his side. Forget it, this is just an interlude. I have to go and see what's going on with Qingling. How's it going? Jia Yan roughly knew the recent situation of Xiaoxiangxing through the memory of his clone's Hiduozing, but he still lacked understanding of high-end affairs, so he had to go to Xingqianmen. His young figure, like a flash in the pan, suddenly turned into a wisp of black in the air, coming and going without a trace. Ji Duoxing still stayed with the young man, but Jia Yan himself crossed thousands of kilometers in an instant and arrived deep in the hinterland of the continent. Inside the Xingqian Gate. This is a top sect, a super powerful sect that has been developing towards the strongest sect recently. The person who leads the Xingqian sect to a higher level at the top level is Qingling, a girl who is only 16 years old now. Reporting to the leader, the elders and guardians have been quite calm recently. Even Elder Shen, who was the most active in the past few days, has also become quiet these days. In the meeting hall of Xingqian Gate, two young girls were exhaling like orchids and exchanging important matters with each other. If it were an ordinary woman, such behavior would only make people laugh. After all, the girl was serious about talking about current affairs. No matter how you looked at it, it was just playing house. But this scene is not like that at the moment. At least it is not surprising at all when it happens to these two girls. Even the exchange between them may be a serious matter that affects the lives and fortunes of countless people. You deserve a lot of credit for their honesty. Next time I will apply for a reward from the adults on your behalf. Qingling is sitting in the head position, motionless as a mountain. Just looking at her current beautiful and fragrant appearance, it is difficult to associate her with the head of the Xingqian sect who has caused war across the continent. Without waiting for King Juan's response below, a young boy's voice came from the void without any warning, no need for next time, just this time. Qingling's expression changed slightly, but soon her face became calm and she looked somewhere in the air. But Qingwan was different from her usual frightened state. After a moment of solemnity, her attitude returned to normal. An illusory shadow seemed to move from fiction to reality. After a blur in front of the two women's eyes, it appeared out of thin air in front of them. Qingling remained calm and composed, but Qingwan frowned, as if she couldn't imagine how to practice this superb body technique. I've met my lord. The two of them greeted each other one after another. It was Jia Yan who came to Xingqian section among his priorities in observing the world. The great star of immortal cultivation has always been the top priority, not only because he is very interested in cultivating immortals, but also because the location of the great star of immortal cultivation is too unique. This Miss Qingwan seems to have changed mentally and made some contributions. It's gratifying to congratulate her. Jia Yan nodded and smiled, rarely looking at Qingwan twice. Qingwan trembled all over, feeling that all her secrets were invisible under Jia Yan's gaze, and she was immediately frightened and didn't dare to say anything. Qingwan has indeed helped me a lot recently. With her help, many stubborn attitudes have softened, and the things I am promoting are on the right track. Qingling has a business-like attitude. If she says she wants to take credit for Qingwan, she will take credit for Qingwan. She will tell King Juan's credit when she opens her mouth. Well, reward her with cultivation techniques and resources, and let her improve to a higher level in a short period of time. Okay, step back. Jia Yan waved his hand grandly and asked Qingwan to advance to the first level. However, before Qingwan could express her gratitude, he immediately ordered her to retreat. After Qingwan retreated, Jia Yan looked at Qingling again and asked, "You should have been injured in the barrier battle last time. How is your injury now?" "Sir, these injuries are not a problem, they just hindered my promotion these days. I should have taken a step further." Qingling looked a little annoyed when she talked about her injury. "The White God department has been quiet for the past 2 days. It doesn't matter if you are within a few days of promotion. You don't have to push yourself too hard. Promotion in this world is not about external strength after all. It's not a bad idea to take this opportunity to enjoy another period of life." Jia Yan smiled and rarely comforted his subordinates not to work too hard. Qingling frowned. "Are you talking about being as uninhibited as Black Tiger? Forget it, if you want me to learn from this old guy, it would be better for me to continue practicing. Moreover, sir, do you think that practicing in this world is right? The outside world is useless, but according to my observation, it seems that this is not the case. Many insights are placed in the outside world. Although it is impossible to directly improve our strength, when we go out, it is likely to be of great help to the next cultivation. I believe you, sir. You've noticed it a long time ago, right?" Qingling's words made Jia Yan look at her even more differently. "When you improve your strength in this world, you will also gain some understanding and help from the outside world. Jia Yan has noticed it before, but the help varies from person to person, so Jia Yan did not use it to motivate his subordinates, so as not to be accused of exploiting his subordinates when he did. However, Qingling was also able to realize this on her own, which somewhat surprised Jia Yan about her talent. You must know that Jia Yan can hardly detect it because he has the identity of the Black God. Part of the original power of this world belongs to Jia Yan. Qingling, who has nothing to do with the original power of this world, can detect it so quickly, which shows that her talent is indeed extraordinary. It's a pity that if she had entered the central star field of the Milky Way like Jia Yan in the early stages of her cultivation, it might be difficult for Jia Yan to catch up and surpass her in strength. However, chance is a matter of great importance. Maybe Qingling went to the central star field of the Milky Way in the early days and died there? Then there's no such thing as talent. So you can't use things that didn't happen as evidence. In short, Jia Yan chose to go to the galaxy central star region. Qingling didn't choose. She is weak and her talent is not as good as Jia Yan. It is a reality. Okay, if you want to understand this world as much as possible, I will not stop you. Even in the future, I will master more of the origin of the world, or after killing the white dolphins and the others, I will release the origin information of the world for you to observe. Then I'll let you improve as much as you want, even if I give up this world to you, it's no problem." Jia Yan waved generously. He was really willing to give it up, because the reason for the existence of this world was to differentiate between him and the white dolphin, devouring each other's original power and coveting the higher level of strength. As long as he can achieve this ambition, he won't care about this trivial matter. Let's discuss it later. Qingling was worthy of being the genius of the territory lord who was used to having a bad face. She didn't rejoice because of the pie painted by Jia Yan, nor did she act in any way. She just spoke in a very calm manner. "It's so boring." Jia Yan was helpless, but he was used to the girl's way of speaking, as if everyone owed her millions. I don't know if she can find a girlfriend with such a bad temper. Jia Yan seriously doubts that even if she has a girlfriend outside, she will get her by threatening her with her strength. Let's not talk about that. Please talk about the recent affairs on the immortal cultivation star. I probably know that I am anxious about the affairs of this continent, but what about the other large continent? Last time I heard you say, there should be the beginning of the Zinbei temple. There's something going on over there, you sent the vanguard troops there, what's going on? Qingling calmed down her arrogance when she saw that business was about to begin. Your Majesty, the war on this continent has indeed entered an anxious period. I was injured a few days ago due to the barrier battle, so I asked my subordinates to restrain themselves a little. But the matter on the other continent, because I was involved in the battle. It was arranged in advance, but it progressed more quickly. She spoke eloquently. Jia Yan listened attentively and nodded from time to time. After listening, he couldn't help but have mixed emotions. Even if Edish's plan is faithfully implemented here, because the Zinbei temple has been laid out for a long time, and there is a vague shadow of the White God department behind it, it is difficult for them to be the last to arrive first. Nowadays, another continent of cultivating immortals is filled with a lot of chaos. Countless people are displaced, and sects and forces are also on their own. You beat me, I beat you, there is no way to fight. But except for some people who know the truth, there is no one at all. Know who they are dealing with. However, the chaotic continent gave Qingling's people more opportunities to take advantage of the situation. They entered their chess pieces into many sects and secretly attracted many high-level officials, vowing to win some important positions. The juncture plays a decisive role. It can't be said to be a victory, but it didn't allow those guys from the White Temple to take over the continent in one fell swoop. The two of us are now in a relatively peaceful period of peace. No one has disclosed their identity. They don't know who is ours, and we don't know who is ours. I don't know what kind of opportunities they have gained, but they are just waiting for an opportunity to break out into a war. Jia Yan nodded. Regardless of the forces on that continent, they are now in control of all resources and areas, but just like this continent, as long as the forces of the Black and White gods really want to attack with all their strength, all the immortal cultivating forces on the two continents will become supporting role. Both sides are dormant, but they are just laying the groundwork. The barrier battle has already caused the two gods to activate the real fire. If a new battle between gods starts immediately on the Xiaoxian star, I am afraid that they will not be able to hold back and it will become the final battle. Jia Yan has this concern, and the White Dolphins may have similar concerns. Therefore, both parties had a tacit understanding and did not choose to directly break out into conflict. But what we can know is that not only Jia Yan is paying close attention to this extremely important geographical star, but also the White God system. It is difficult to say whether there are some gods of the White God system who have been sitting on this planet for a long time. Just like the last time Qingling reported information about the suspected presence of White gods, it was impossible for them to abandon this planet. The two sides discussed the current political affairs on the immortal cultivation star again, and finally exchanged general information clearly. Jia Yan also roughly understood that Qingling has been in a dilemma recently. If she wants to go further, she may cause trouble. The big backlash caused Zinbei Temple to make big moves, so she was also waiting for Jia Yan's personal order, fearing that Jia Yan's plans would change. Qingling, you have worked hard on this matter. Let's do this. I will give you the power here. From today on, if you want to start a war, you can start it, even if it attracts one or two gods from the other side, it doesn't matter. Come on, I think the White God sect doesn't want to fight with my Black God sect here anymore, so just go ahead and do it, even if you make a mistake, I won't blame you. Don't use it if you doubt it, don't doubt it if you employ it. Since Jia Yan has chosen Qingling to be on such an important planet, he chooses to trust her. Even though he was worried about the early battle, he chose to believe that Qingling could control the speed. Yes. Qingling raised the corners of her lips, as if she was slightly happy that Jia Yan believed in her. Of course, this happiness was fleeting. Jia Yan took another look at the fairy-like scenery nearby and couldn't help but sigh secretly. As long as the war begins, this unique star of cultivating immortals, the planet he imagined that Edisha would create, may not be intact as before. He hopes that some humanistic features can be retained by then, otherwise it will really destroy his mind. The beauty in. It's time to start some new actions. Jia Yan said goodbye to Qing Ling while talking to himself, and his whole person turned into a shadow and disappeared into the sky. Qing Ling was not surprised by his improvement in strength. After all, in this world, no matter how strong a person is, they cannot be stronger than the original strength of outsiders like them. It was just Jia Yan's unique state of perception that made Qing Ling feel slightly absent-minded. Qing Ling had never been convinced of Jia Yan's talent before, thinking that the name of the evolved beast was just an exaggeration in the rumors from ancient times to the present. But she really saw an evolved beast, and it was probably the most talented and powerful evolved beast since ancient times, but she was shocked and inexplicable. Jia Yan's talent is definitely not weaker than hers, and Jia Yan's hard work far exceeds Qing Ling's. It's not that she has no idea and impulse to go to the central star field of the Milky Way, but for so many years, she has not been able to take that step and choose stay in a corner and be a regional genius here. This is the essential difference between Jia Yan and her. When you reach the galaxy level or above, talent no longer means anything. This kind of strength generally means you will reap what you sow. The harder you work and the more you dare to fight, the greater the harvest will be. Of course, there is a risk of death. It is also accompanied by those who dare to fight hard. Qing Ling did not choose a dangerous path, so it was normal for her to be weaker than Jia Yan. I originally thought that in a new world, the difference wouldn't be that big. But today, when she saw Jia Yan who was feeling something, Qing Ling fell silent. In a world with a similar starting point, even if Jia Yan has some understanding of the origin of the world, he shouldn't be as strong as Qing Ling, but unfortunately, he is still much stronger. On a big road, it is normal to be weaker than Jia Yan. I originally thought that in a new world, the difference wouldn't be that big. But today, when she saw Jia Yan who was feeling something, Qing Ling fell silent. In a world with a similar starting point, even if Jia Yan has some understanding of the origin of the world, he shouldn't be as strong as Qing Ling, but unfortunately, he is still much stronger. Even if Jia Yan has some understanding of the origin of the world, he shouldn't be that much stronger than Qing Ling, but unfortunately, he is still too much stronger. Even if Jia Yan has some understanding of the origin of the world, he shouldn't be that much stronger than Qing Ling, but unfortunately, he is still too much stronger. Even if Jia Yan has some understanding of the origin of the world, he shouldn't be that much stronger than Qing Ling, but unfortunately, he is still too much stronger. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3402. It's okay if you can't hold on. I thought your method could survive in the subspace of the other world forever. So what do we, subspace geniuses, need to do? Hard work is unfounded. Jia Yan calmed down his worries. As a person with a talent for eating in subdimensional space, what he fears most is that the things he relies on for survival are broken by others. Of course, the situation is not very good now. This Spider King was able to stay with him for such a long time, and Jia Yang did not help him resolve the subdimensional pressure at all. And this is his ability to withstand severe injuries, which shows that he can persist longer with his body intact. Poof! With another sudden burst, the two of them flew out of the subspace. You don't need to worry too much. There should be very few people with my method of entering subspace, including Chang Lai and the few masters around him, otherwise they would not let go of the pursuit. The Spider King is like a round worm in Jia Yan's belly. Humph, I didn't say that I was worried about this matter. Please don't make any assumptions. Jia Yanfu said with narrowed eyes. The other party nodded and smiled slightly, but said nothing further. The height from which the two jumped was above the endless ocean. Because the Spider King couldn't bear it, Jia Yan flew out without choosing a landing place. Let's do this. I'll find a place to stay. You can cultivate for a while. Then you can tell me where you are and I'll take you back. Jia Yan said with a seemingly expressionless face. The other party was about to refuse, but when he saw Jia Yan's demeanor, his heart froze, and he immediately changed his words. Okay, let me take a break. He knew that Jia Yan was planning to get the information about his hiding place for future needs. Who puts him at a disadvantage now? Jia Yan himself would definitely not reveal too much information about his hiding place or his family. However, this matter must not be kept secret for long. His appearance, or rather his name, Jia Yan, has already gained some reputation in the neighborhood. As long as the other party invests a little attention in investigating, he can easily know Jia Yan's identity. This means that both parties know the basics, and cooperation will be smoother. Of course, the current opponent doesn't seem to know Jia Yan's true identity. After cruising around in circles over the ocean for a few hours, we finally found an island under the setting sun. This is the biggest problem with flying on the ocean of the other world by one's own ability. The ocean here is too huge. The masters of the late domain masters can't fly very far in half a day at ordinary flying speeds. After the two landed, they didn't check too much on the island. This island is not big, with a diameter of more than 10,000 kilometers. It may be a quite amazing continent on the Earth. In the other world, it is just a small island and reef, and even a normal giant race cannot accommodate a few. Jia Yan and the others don't have this problem. After resting in the woods on the island for about 2 days. Then Chang Lai didn't come to the door. Sure enough, he had abandoned the direction where we were waiting. In the morning, Jia Yan woke up from his simple retreat and looked at a silk cocoon beside him. He said directly, "Your Excellency Spider King, would you like to rest? I'm worried that Chang Lai's party will find our location, so it's better to act quickly." Catcha. The silk cocoon cracked, revealing the Spider King who still looked tired behind him. Jia Yan guessed his condition, and it was impossible to repair it in 2 days. But it has recovered a lot. Okay, Your Excellency Jia Yan, I have to trouble you again. It doesn't matter. Jia Yan flicked his foot and wrapped the Spider King in it. During the process, Jia Yan's heart moved slightly. He felt that the Spider King had made some vague movement, but the moment Jia Yan noticed it, the movement suddenly disappeared. As if nothing happened, Jia Yan took the Spider King into the subspace. The Spider King was also familiar with the pressure of subspace, and soon sprayed out a large piece of silk web again to protect himself. His eyes locked on Jia Yan with resentment. It's obvious that the two sides have formed an alliance. It's easy for Jia Yan to help him. After all, he is a subspace gifted creature. By spreading his power, the Spider King will at least not be so tired. Jia Yan just didn't do it. It shows that the verbal agreement between the two parties is equivalent to not counting at all. The other party didn't say anything. It must be clear to both of them how they got together now. Oh, Your Excellency is actually over there. It's quite far away from here. It seems that you traveled across mountains and rivers to come here with the mentality of killing with one strike. It's a pity that your success fell short. After Jia Yan heard the address described by the other party, his face looked strange. It turns out that the Spider King actually exists and made his fortune on the other side of the continent. He just came to this area to find trouble with Chang Lai. It's also my fault that I was obsessed. After being found by my spy subordinates, I was obsessed with getting rid of this serious problem of feud. The Spider King smiled bitterly. How could he have thought that his subordinate, whom he was very relieved of, would secretly transfer to Chang Lai's subordinates long ago? Jia Yan was mocking the other person both inside and outside of his words, but in fact he didn't really want to mock him, but to force the other person to reveal more information about himself under the guidance of his emotions. But Your Excellency really made some miscalculations. Since you know Chang Lai and others so well, why did you only bring so few people? Is it because you are short of manpower? The Spider King glanced at Jia Yan with a pair of cold-blooded animal eyes. Your Excellency Jia Yan, you don't need to test with words. I know what information you want to get. It's just whether there are other masters in my hometown. I'm not afraid of your laughter. If I have more people, why will I only bring those people with me this time? Come. But you don't need to be happy too early. Even if those few are not as good as me, each one of them is a first-class master in our galaxy cluster. I guess it's not a big deal to escape a few, so my hometown may still be there now. There are quite a few manpower. Jia Yan was non-committal. Even if those who surrounded and killed Chang Lai could escape, how many would be left? In other words, how many of the remaining ones have full combat effectiveness? Who can guarantee that after they escape, they will choose to return to the Spider King's territory as soon as possible? After thinking about it, Jia Yan felt that he could fight 10. Including the half-dead Spider King next to him. If you can't beat them to death, at least crush them. Thinking of this, his escape was even faster in the depths of subspace. At this moment, a huge light exploded across the ocean. The distance was too far, so Jia Yan didn't notice anything, but if he could see one of the two parties fighting clearly, he would definitely show a little surprise. Because this is the island where Hai Tian is hiding. He had not lived a good life for a few days, let alone went out to take advantage of the situation in the later period, and he was actually approached by others. Old man, do you think you are hiding deep? In fact, we have been targeting you for a long time. If you are sensible, just admit defeat and hand over your admission ticket. A figure twisted inside the subspace, standing proudly in the sky. Under his feet was a forest of dust and smoke. In this smoke, an old figure owner kept coughing. Ahem, cough, cough, you little guy, do you want me to die? This smoke is too choking. Hai Tian coughed so hard that he almost coughed out his lungs. I don't care if you are choked or not, I only know that if you are still here delaying time, your death will come next. That time, the creature inside the space moved its figure with a sneer, and its looming figure actually took on the shape of some kind of noodle. If Jia Yan Zayasai would definitely be extremely surprised to find that the person who came to intercept and kill Hai Tian was the noodle creature that he had a relationship with. Moreover, this noodle creature was not liked by Jia Yan, and the meeting between the two parties was far from friendly. However, what he never expected was that this noodle creature would actually find Hai Tian. He also has a very deep grasp of Haitian's information, as if he has been targeting him for a long time. Is it, ahem, is that the information that little Jia Yan gave you? How dare this little guy betray me? Hai Tian's eyes became serious as he coughed. The first thing he thought of was naturally Jia Yan. Because only Jia Yan knew that he settled here. Puff. The noodle creature couldn't help laughing. He rolled his eyes and said calmly, now that you know everything, there's nothing to explain. That person has already sold you to me. Why don't you obediently hand over what I want? Otherwise, you old man bones, I'm afraid you won't be able to bear it if you suffer a little more inhuman suffering. Hai Tian's expression became a little sinister. Really, it is indeed Jia Yan. That little guy, I knew he couldn't be trusted. Fortunately, I thought I had gained his trust over the years, but it turned out to be like this. As he spoke, his momentum increased. You old thing. What kind of aura is this? For those of you who have experienced real life and death, you don't understand, you really don't understand, what does it mean to play in the world? What does it mean to be bullied by a junior? Haha, you don't understand life and death. Just don't ever try to defeat me, the old man. As he spoke, Lao Haitian took his old and dull figure step by step, but these steps seemed to be stepping on the heartbeat of those present. One step at a time, initially the steps were in sync with the heartbeats of others. After 2 steps, everyone's heartbeat frequency magically became consistent with it. What kind of witchcraft is this? The noodle creature couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood, and its long noodle body finally became sluggish. He backed away like crazy, the fear in his eyes unable to be concealed. How's it going? With my unique skill, how powerful do you think it is on the ladder? The ladder to heaven is not too mysterious for these old men who have mastered many classics and information. They also know that every galaxy race that has the ability to join the battle in the world will have its own ladder guide, so for everyone for a galaxy master, the rhetoric of measuring the number of paths to the ladder is the same everywhere. 70 levels. The face of the noodle creature was distorted, and it kept retreating in the subspace, but it seemed as if something was holding its heart, and it was completely unable to escape. Is it only level 70? What a pity. I think it should be higher. 90. Level 90, Your Excellency, please don't misunderstand us. We made the mistake in this matter. The noodle-like creature screamed crazily inside the subspace. Although he alone gave the order, he deliberately said we, as if he and his subordinates scattered around, who were speechless at this time, were also involved in the plan. We. Some of them spoke quickly, but when their eyes touched the young noodle-like creature, they finally stopped. I still ask this old man to punish you, but please spare the young master, we are willing to suffer on his behalf. Die. In front of this old star thief, you are not qualified. Let's do this. 1 or 2 of you can form an alliance with me. This is when I am short of manpower. What? Forming an alliance and lacking manpower? What are you? With everyone's exclamations, everyone was pulled out from their hiding place and fell to the island ground one by one. Behind them, the new local guru who had served Haitian for a long time seemed to have taken a rope and tied them up. The masters of the next level of the dignified domain lord were bound by some ropes like ordinary living beings. However, they still dare not use their own abilities to untie the rope. Oh! This guy's escaping speed is comparable to that boy Jiayan. Forget it, even the old man can't stop him at this speed. Haitian shook his head, and after giving up with great regret, he suddenly looked back. The extremely old face looked like some kind of wild beast in the eyes of the masters who were captured at this time. As for you, you can't escape. I won't believe you if you accuse the old man. How about this? The old man just needs some subordinates. How about you condescend? No, senior, we really can't, we really can't. It can't be right. That would make me, old man, not very happy. Forget it, it doesn't matter whether you are willing or not. Look, old man, I only have the power of life and death. Lao Haitian, the former giant star thief with a terrible past. Now in the battle between the holders, his terror is truly demonstrated. The old man who crawled back from hell is regarding life and death. He probably has a deeper understanding of life and death than almost all the participants in the world. After all, he has personally experienced the existence of life and death, and life from death. Ah! Accompanied by several shrill screams, the subordinates led by the noodle creature entered a strange state one by one. After Lao Haitian finished taking care of these people, he glanced at the subspace that had long been empty, and then shook his head helplessly. Jiayan, please come out and explain. Does this matter have anything to do with you? As a result, the old man may lose the home I chose. If I don't give the old man a reasonable explanation, in the future. He smiled, and a strong man's body behind him was broken into 2 halves. Blood flowed freely, but what made people's scalp numb was that the master who was supposed to be dead reunited with the help of some weird power not long after his body was separated, but his eyes became dull and dull. Rigid. The mobile site is newly revised and upgraded at the following address. Data and bookmarks are synchronized with the computer site for refreshing reading without ads. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3403. At first glance, he looked exactly like the new guru standing next to Hai Tian. This is the young master Jia Yan bestowed upon the sea angel. But the situation still became weird. Jia Yan, if you harm the old man and me, you won't be able to offset it by just talking and laughing. Hai Tian smiled and touched the master, who broke into two parts and followed him to show his kindness. In addition, the masters also became disorganized while screaming. Not long after, more and more sluggish and dull people stood up around Hai Tian. Jia Yan failed to understand the situation on the other side of the ocean. If he found out, he would probably be shocked and then go about his business. I have long expected that Haitian's strength will be astonishing. Under the current circumstances, it was just a confirmation of his thoughts. However, what he really didn't expect was that Haitian might have misunderstood Jia Yan, but this happened out of thin air. It would not take long for Haitian to realize that he had misunderstood him. The other direction is closer to the mainland. This place is a far-away place that even Jia Yan's Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has not visited. The subspace opened and two figures flew out. Your resistance to the subspace is too weak. I helped you offset the pressure of the subspace, but it's still so useless. Hug, ahem, I'm sorry, Your Excellency Jia Yan, your ability in the subspace is really eye-opening. I really didn't expect you to be able to sail so far in the subspace. Spider King coughed angrily while looking at Jia Yan with horrifying eyes. He finally saw how terrifying Jia Yan's subspace power was. In the subspace of the other world, as early as after he came to the other world, he tried and trained himself to endure it for a long time. Jia Yan seems to have a certain ability to survive in subspace. He was surprised, and even thought that God was unfair, but he never thought about how much effort the Spider King had made in order to survive in the subspace. He has even thought about it a long time ago, and his tolerance for the subspace in the other world may be greater than that of many subspace talented masters. Now Jia Yan has shattered this confidence. Your dad is still your dad. Compare subspace endurance with subspace talented creatures, go ahead and eat shit. Maybe Jia Yan is a unique subspace talent master? The Spider King couldn't help but think again. If Jia Yan could understand his inner struggle and discomfort, he might say that he was overthinking. Jia Yan has observed several masters with the same level of subspace talent. Each subspace ability is not weak. Even the dead one from the Magellanic Galaxy cannot be so weak that even the Spider King's subspace endurance can't be compared. Go that way. The Spider King recognized his position and led Jia Yan on his way in the vast sea. Not long after, a giant island appeared in front of the two of them. This large island is second only to the mainland. It is about 1/5 the size of the mainland. It has many races and forces. I am here to take root. Oh. Jia Yan nodded. He had long known about the island, which was famous because of its size. The Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has not been able to advance in this direction. The reason is very simple. On this island, there is a strong exclusivity. Because it is close to the mainland, the jealousy and yearning of the indigenous residents of this big island for the mainland have given rise to the twisted mentality of these islanders. They are more autistic and arrogant, and gradually become. He has expressed his resistance to the mainland, many islands, and even visitors from outside the world. Jia Yan was surprised that the Spider King could develop on this island. However, After flying to the unique coastal area on one side of the island, Jia Yan discovered that there was more to it than that. The giant force that the Spider King went to actually occupied a huge area in the coastal area. I've met Lord Spider King. Who is this? A group of creatures felt the power released by the Spider King on the periphery of the force, and flew up in a swarm, and then looked at Jia Yan, who was beside the Spider King. This is my good friend, Your Excellency Jia Yan. Please prepare a welcome banquet as soon as possible. Yes. Everyone suddenly understood that the existence that could make His Highness the Spider King so interested must be of the same rank, so they hurried back to the island and started to welcome him. Among the group of creatures in Wanjiang, 2 top masters stayed with them. They are the same rank as the 2 territory lords. Your Excellency Jia Yan, you are not of the same level in this world, right? May I ask which galaxy you come from? The 2 masters are both late-level domain masters, but their sizes are not like ordinary galaxy masters. One has expanded to nearly 1,000 kilometers, and the other is more than 800 kilometers. Although it is not as intelligent as the ordinary-sized intelligent creatures in the other world, it is still reasonable to pretend to be a strong man of small creatures. Thinking that the Spider King also had a body size of several hundred kilometers, Jia Yan's heart moved slightly. Yes, I am also a visitor from the galaxy. I come from the Milky Way. Galaxy? Could it be that you are Mr. Jia Yan, the president of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce? Yes, it's me. I have admired him for a long time, and the name of President Jia Yan has long been spread throughout our ears. The 2 sides immediately exchanged pleasantries. The Spider King's expression did not change drastically. Obviously, he had already guessed Jia Yan's identity. The so-called famous name of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is not a lie. The president of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is extremely high profile. Previously, Spider King was not sure about Jia Yan's identity. He simply believed that it was impossible for a ticket holder to make himself famous in the dark forest. Isn't this the rhythm of finding others to kill you? But now it seems that this fellow Jia Yan is really the kind of guy who does the opposite. Stupid. Impossible, he would rather believe that the subspacer is overconfident and wants to try a trick where he is surrounded by many competitors and is surrounded by dangers. Otherwise, why would a serious competitor have everyone know his name? All in all, this meeting seemed to be going on in a harmonious way. The forces also organized a grand welcome party urgently. Such a strange situation also caused ordinary participants in many forces to guess which big forces guests were visiting. Everyone was shocked until they saw the mosquito that was completely different from the tiny creature. Welcome such a little thing? May I ask, Lord Spider King, is it possible that your power was established in the name of an ordinary otherworld power? That's right, so I ask Your Excellency Jia Yan to conceal it for me. Many of the middle and lower level members of my force are natives. The Spider King nodded. Jia Yan was non-committal. For him, this matter was of no benefit. It was just that the king was deliberately trying to make a good deal so that he could learn some of his secrets. But it's just one of Jia Yan's purposes. It's not like he really just wanted to make friends with Spider King's powerful people, so he asked Spider King to bring him here. Just to get his secret in exchange. Thank you Spider King and your 2 excellencies for the grand welcome ceremony. I believe our alliance will have a bright future. Lord Spider King, have you formed an alliance with him? The 2 subordinates were very strange and a little uncomfortable. Your Excellency Jia Yan is also a participant. I believe that after he survives the first round, he will become extremely powerful. The Spider King opened his eyes and said blindly. In fact, it was just a matter of form that forced him to tell Jia Yan about the relationship. The language of alliance. Otherwise, whoever finds an alliance with someone who may be called upon by other participants at any time and at any time would be indirectly exposing themselves. Hey, Mr. Spider King, you don't have to be so arrogant. How did we form an alliance? You can tell the two friends and be honest with each other. Only then will the next cooperation really have a chance to continue. Otherwise, it is nothing more than threatening each other. How can it be possible to achieve vertical and horizontal integration? Well, the Spider King pondered for a moment and finally nodded. He told the story of his friendship with Jia Yan. So, those brothers who haven't returned yet may have been killed by poisonous hands. No, it's just that our return speed is faster than theirs. After all, the subspace method we use is the fastest in this world. The two masters of the lower level of Domain Lord, the two weakest of the same level in this force, their expressions became extremely ugly after hearing the Spider King's memories. They had known that Spider King and others were going out to carry out some secret tasks, but because it was too dangerous, they did not let them go together. Now that I have learned about the specific matters, I suddenly feel that the future is bleak. It's very violent. If they find out where our group is staying, they will probably come and kill us overnight. Your Excellency, Spider King, I suggest that the forces implement the highest level of curfew and strict security from today on. There are other brothers who may be hiding somewhere to recuperate. We will also ask people to go out to search and provide necessary help. The two of you talk to each other and help the Spider King make plans. Jia Yan suddenly felt that having two virtuous housekeepers of the same rank was the most wonderful thing in the world. It's a pity that he worked so hard to recruit, but in the end he only had a trustworthy peer like Huaxiang, and the few local helpers from the dynasty only joined under his coercion and inducement, and they felt more like juniors. On the contrary, it is not worthy of trust. Let's do it this way. The next step is the specific matters of our alliance with His Excellency Jia Yan. How about the two brothers discuss our requirements in front of His Excellency Jia Yan? Let's talk frankly. Maybe this alliance will last forever. The Spider King waved his hand and handed over all matters to his two subordinates of the same rank. Jia Yan's eyes flickered slightly. This Spider King seems to be a hands-off shopkeeper, but actually he is cultivating his body on the side. For them, the imminent Chang Lai is a threat, and the existence of his seemingly friend is not a huge threat. Jia Yan didn't take it seriously either. In short, as long as there is no serious conflict on the surface, he does not expect the two sides to reach any important alliance agreement. This kind of friendship that has not been seriously tested can be broken at any time. No matter how much we talk about it now, it is useless. It has to be tested with specific attitudes and affairs to have real value and significance. This is why the Spider King would rather not talk to Jia Yan in person, but seize the time to work hard to repair his body nearby. He was also afraid that Jia Yan would get angry and hurt someone. Jia Yan ignored all this and discussed the alliance with two of the Spider King's subordinates. No matter how big or small the matter was, Jia Yan had a dispute with the officials. It is said to be a fake alliance, but there is no guarantee that it will succeed one day. The other party also quickly discovered that the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce had a lot of chips. Especially when it comes to mobilizing supplies, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce spans half of the map. Such a unique advantage was obtained by the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce at the cost of the president being in danger at any time. Whether it is worth not mentioning for the moment, but at least for now, whoever forms an alliance with them in the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce will really have huge material benefits. The president is indeed a cheerful person. How about this? We can discuss the last list again. How about increasing the amount by 10% from the share we just discussed? You know, this kind of material is not produced on our island. If we can increase it by 10%, our strength will also rise out of thin air. Aren't you willing? You are too stingy. We know that Galaxy Merchant has its own considerations and fixed trading partners, but haven't we formed an alliance? We are a participant alliance. We are different from ordinary trading partners. Don't you want to join hands with Lord Spider King to become a powerful person above the lower level of territory lord? No, No, President Jia Yan, we are not threatening you. We cannot threaten your strength. This is just a normal transaction, a transaction. The three of them were arguing and their faces turned red for a moment. Oh no, it was the insect that turned pale. Jia Yan did not indulge the other party too much. Just during the conversation, several figures fell from the sky, all of them were shaky, but their aura immediately attracted the four people in the negotiation room. Among the several masters who joined forces with the Spider King to attack Chang Lai, several of them returned dragging their broken bodies. The injuries they sustained were indeed extremely serious, but they managed to escape, which showed that Chang Lai had no means to retain these masters. However, there are still several people missing. Is this the one who was in the subspace? The shaky figure came to pay homage to the Spider King, and after they saw Jia Yan, they all felt quite dignified. The man who they felt was not a friend at first was now sitting at the VIP table among their influence, which immediately made them curious about Jia Yan's identity. We'll talk about those later. Brothers, I'm extremely sorry for being so seriously injured. Spider King, why don't you go down and rest first? I'll explain the matter to you later. I will also search for the other two as much as possible. Then we will pay you a visit, Your Excellency Jia Yan. We will see you again later when we have a chance. These three figures then stumbled and flew towards their respective retreats. It seems that if you don't get a good rest, you may suffer lifelong injuries that cannot be recovered, and you may even fall into the realm. I'm so envious of you, Lord Spider King, for having such a good brother of the same level. It's so miserable for me that I don't even have such good friends of the same level. Jia Yan was extremely envious. Your Excellency, Jia Yan is just too young. If you stay in our stage for a longer time, you will always find friends with similar interests. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3404. I hope I can lend you some good words. Let's get back to business and continue talking about our alliance. This exchange, or transaction of interests, lasted for 3 days. It is true that 3 days is nothing to a lower-level domain lord like Jia Yan. But the brain cells consumed in 3 days still made him scream that he couldn't hold on. When would the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, which was on the right track, ask his dignified president to personally take care of it? What's more, he was fighting against several other lower-level domain lords, and their brain reaction speeds were not much slower than Jia Yan's. Even in terms of experience value and knowledge, it is far beyond. The Spider King himself has been in the process of self-cultivation. It was not until 3 days later that the spider's body suddenly regained its clarity. Your Excellency, President Jia Yan, leave the red tape to the people below to deal with it. How about we discuss things that are more important to us? Haha, you finally stopped playing tricks with me? That's fine, let's find a place. Jia Yan chuckled. The 3 days of negotiation was just a process for the Spider King to regain a certain strength. He understood this better than anyone. In this way, the Spider King claims to have a certain fighting ability, and he officially wants to start a real negotiation with himself. Found a more private place. Even the worried subordinates asked to leave. Aren't you afraid that this president will do something bad to you? You were scared to death when you were in the subspace. Jia Yan teased. President, you don't have to ridicule me anymore. What I did was just a choice that normal people would make, don't you think so? Jia Yan remained silent. The two parties directly conducted in-depth conversations and discussions on how competitors compete, how they cooperate, to what level they cooperate, and how to realize the best interests of both parties. Different from the previous injury suffered by Spider King. Despite being forced to humble himself, he is now in pretty good health and his speech is much more normal. I see, your limits were so low before. If you weren't afraid that I would be disadvantageous to you, you wouldn't have said it. Jia Yan turned on the taunting mode. Oh, I remember that in the subspace, you were talking about helping our president to kill Chang Lai. How come it has become a matter of who has the chance and who will kill him? Then why did I spend so much effort to save you? Sure enough, you are a person who easily goes back on your word. Your Excellency Spider King, you claim to be the first rank of the first domain lord of the galaxy cluster, right? It's a pity, I really don't see how you look like a dignified person, you don't have any magnanimity at all. Could it be that all the galaxy clusters you are in behave like this? The Spider King was really depressed. This Jia Yan, once he talked about real cooperation with him, became like a hedgehog covered with thorns. I have no idea what to say. He couldn't help but shook his head and sighed, Your Excellency Jia Yan, I know you are dissatisfied with my behavior of crossing rivers and destroying bridges, but you should also understand that when we reach this level of cultivation, we have to fight for some things that should be fought. As for you mentioned the priority of killing Chang Lai. If the opportunity is really not with you, if I kill him, it will be regarded as eliminating future troubles forever, right? I can only promise to give you this opportunity as much as possible. After all, with my ability, it's not too difficult to kill other competitors. Look at what you said, as if it will be difficult for me, the guild leader, to kill me. Are you looking down on me? Jia Yan retorted again, almost making Spider King so angry that his old injury relapsed and he died. This young man has never been so vicious before. But come to think of it, Jia Yan is young, so he probably hasn't had many similar experiences. The Spider King obviously agreed to many of his conditions, but now that the crisis was over, he went back on his promise again. But is it really possible for him to implement the conditions he agreed to under critical circumstances? It's simply impossible. But when he saw Jia Yan's ridicule, he finally relaxed a little. The most basic thing is Jia Yan. What he wanted most was Chang Lai's kill quota. This is a necessity for Jia Yan. He had already seen from the abilities of Spider King and Chang Lai that none of these competitors would be easy to compete with. He was a backward person. Not only did he have a very short time to practice, he even got the admission ticket only when things were about to happen. Various unfavorable conditions indicate that if he fails to seize any promotion opportunity, there is a high probability of being eliminated. Therefore, he would not let go of Chang Lai's kill quota until he died. Fortunately, Spider King also knew this and gradually gave up on this most basic condition. After that, the two were like generals fighting against each other, and they began to engage in verbal quarrels on certain key conditions. It has to be said that the other party is an experienced master. I'm afraid he heard everything about Jia Yan's previous conversation with his subordinates. Therefore, I have a certain understanding and targeted measures of Jia Yan's talking style. As he talked, Jia Yan found that no matter whether he used serious principles, used nonsense, or used methods such as pretending to be deaf and dumb, it began to have no effect. As a result, he fell into passivity. It's all the youth's fault. Jia Yan wanted to tell the other party that it would be too much for you, an old man who is thousands of years old, to try to trick me, a child who is hundreds of years old. But it would be impossible for him to say this by himself, as it would be tantamount to showing weakness to the enemy. What's more, if the other party is jealous of your talent, wouldn't it make you even more tempted to raise your price? Fortunately, the most important thing about the other party has not changed, that is, he seems to have sincerely reached a joint deal with Jia Yan. Under this basic requirement, the two sides seemed to be very gunpowder, but they never deviated from the core of cooperation. Over time, the differences between the two were settled one by one. In the end, the two gradually smiled. I didn't expect that this discussion would pass by another day and night. Your Excellency, President Jia Yan, I know why you are able to become the President of the Great Chamber of Commerce. Your ability to talk is really impressive. Jia Yan didn't know whether to reply or not. My ability to talk is really a noob. He felt that Spider King was sarcastic about himself. Okay, Your Excellency Spider King, I will send people from the Chamber of Commerce here to build the embassy and set up communication devices. If you have any information about Chang Lai, please inform us as soon as possible. This matter will be done sooner rather than later. What happened last time, the confrontation has made him wary of the two of us, and by the time he builds up a defense capability against our subspace, I'm afraid it will be too late to say anything. Of course I know this. Don't worry, I have contacted the other two friends that day. They were seriously injured, but not dead. I will let them rest and recuperate well. I will notify you when the time is about the same. Then I, the President, will be waiting for you. Jia Yan said, retreated into the subspace, and suddenly disappeared. Until the fluctuations in the subspace seemed to fly away, and several figures came from outside. Lord Spider King, do you really want to cooperate with Jia Yan? What? This young man is very energetic, and there is nothing wrong with me cooperating with him. It is better than cooperating with other old women and cunning people, and being temporarily disrupted. The Spider King responded coldly. Everyone was speechless for a moment. The Spider King has experienced too many betrayals and deaths in his life. Including this time to sneak attack Chang Lai, the old friend who had been arranged by Chang Lai's side for 1,500 years actually betrayed him. It shows that the older you are, the easier it is to only focus on benefits. So he changed his style and found a young man to cooperate with who could understand. What's more, the most important point is that Jia Yan's strength is by no means easy to compare with. This Jia Yan's subspace talent is extraordinary. I have experienced it. His subspace talent is still very rough, but it has already reached the current level. It shows that if he studies carefully for more time, maybe there will be greater progress. It is not necessarily a bad thing to make friends with such a master now. We understand. The subordinates had no choice but to admit their cooperation with Jia Yan. Within subspace, the Spider King will definitely be willing to cooperate with me sincerely. Jia Yan is also thinking about this. He knew that the opponent was strong, and if he stayed to eavesdrop, he would be easily detected even in the subspace. By then, the alliance that had not yet begun might be stillborn. So he chose to trust the other party. Regardless of the practical factors or the human factor of having rescued the other party before, there was no reason for the Spider King to part ways with him. But fate cannot be in the hands of others. The cards in their hands are at least much stronger than mine. I need to make my own cards bigger, so that I can have certain restraints when changes occur. Jia Yan recognized this. His strongest method, at least for these fellow competitors, is his subspace ability. It is difficult for others to come and go freely in the subspace of the other world. Even the Spider King can only survive for a long time. Asking him to move as fast as Jia Yan is no different from killing him. And this advantage among competitors may not last too long. Most of the competitors have a deeper grasp of the rules of life and death than I do. The next level of rules, according to what the Spider King said, will be one level at a time, and each participant will become stronger quickly during this period. Successive space methods will gradually lose their original role in the future, thus becoming less advantageous. Jia Yan is not afraid of being cut down on subspace means. Because he has other means. For example, in terms of formation Dao, and Yin-Yang Dao, these two seem to be very weak now, and many competitors' methods far exceed Jia Yan's self-creation ability of these two. But their potential is endless. Because they have found a new way, at least among the competitors Jia Yan has seen, no one has created such unorthodox training and combat skills as he has, which shows that they have no defense against such skills, and may not even know how to defend themselves. In this way, when more rules are mastered, such as the rules of life and death, and integrated into the array and yin and yang dao, it may be a huge improvement. By then, it may be able to replace the advantage of subspace and become Jia Yan's main means of dealing with competitors in the future. There is nothing I can do to tell the Spider King my identity. Jia Yan thought of another level and sighed softly. Because this matter cannot be hidden. If he was able to conceal it before, it was because he was not involved in the competitors' affairs at all, and it was impossible for others to know that he also had tickets. Now he is involved in the affairs of competitors, and he attacks another competitor as soon as he takes action. The most fatal thing is that he fails to eliminate the opponent, plus saving the Spider King. In this way, several of his methods were exposed. Following the clues, the famous Galaxy Chamber of Commerce may have been leaked. His president, just like other competitors think, is no different from shouting "I am here" in the dark forest. So instead of hiding it for a while and having his identity discovered by Spider King Chang Lai and others, it was better to tell the truth honestly. As a result, the current business style of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce will have to change. The Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has been vigorously developing and growing, and there is no sign of stopping until now. But during the flight, Jia Yan directly used ultra-long-distance communication methods to deliver an order to Huasiang. This ended the momentum of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce that seemed to be taking off. It can be said to have come to an abrupt end. Just the day after Jia Yan's order passed, the Xiancheng headquarters of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce announced that it would suspend all active transportation of supplies to the outside world. Anyone who wants to buy, merchants or individuals who buy products from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce can visit the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce's territory, but they themselves, except for necessary diplomatic activities, will no longer send caravans, maintain trade routes, and no longer pay for any materials that leave the boundaries of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Make a guarantee. It can be said that one stone stirs up 1,000 waves. The Galaxy Chamber of Commerce's sales method in the past was very considerate. The things you ordered were only finished when they were delivered to you, but now, they no longer deliver supplies. Merchants complained that they personally went to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce to buy products and then brought them to the place of sale. The travel expenses were at least twice as expensive as if they outsourced to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. However, with the increase in prices, buyers who were accustomed to low-priced products they are definitely not satisfied. If this continues, at least half of them will go bankrupt. Ordinary buyers are even more horrified. Find books at. The products of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce have long become a common convenience throughout the dynasty. Many areas have even entered the electrical age because of the technical guidance sent by the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Now, because of an order, these technical people have returned to the territory of the Chamber of Commerce, and all their progress has come to an instant standstill. Not to mention the products. It can be seen with the naked eye that the high-tech and convenient things in the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce will increase in price crazily in the future, and even become hard to find. All those with foresight poured into the major branches of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce that had not yet been cleared, began to raid goods, and even brewed several serious violent incidents. In this regard, many people within the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce also expressed discomfort. Especially those domain masters who claim to hold shares. There are even some of them who have never been to this world before. They usually sit in the office in the trade area and drink tea, and they can count the income increase by a few percentage points while drooling.